The first 2 weeks went pretty good, I would say. Like me and Solus didn't really have like much like practice or like preparation going into the tourney, so being top four after 2 weeks is a pretty good result.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks, me and Kerm just basically play solo queue. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know,
we
in the
we
tournament.
didn't even play together. Like that's the thing.
Yeah,
We played solo queue, and then like
it's
once we got into the actual tourney, like we started like killing each other. Okay, actually it was mainly just me killing Solus, but like that's because like he's too weak. Like
our playstyle is different.
he's
Like
actually
my
too weak.
playstyle is like open four, and Kerm playstyle is slam item win streak.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when he
We have
fight
to
me,
work.
he's like 1 or 2 level above me. Our duel moment would be like when Kerm doesn't move the Zephyr or Shroud into me because he's a sweat. He make those items, and it saves me health when he doesn't shout or Zephyr my carry.
Okay, you know the last team death was your fault because I literally said I'm swapping sides and you didn't swap sides.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
as soon as,
thing
like,
is,
seconds left, you kill yourself. You kill yourself.
I mean,
I mean,
I
like,
wasn't scouting Kerm because he was my teammate.
I mean, duo tourneys are just like so much more fun. It's kind of like queuing. It's kind of like duo queuing, like with your friend, like in solo queue, kind of like versus really good players. Yeah, my biggest surprise was definitely like DQA and Nubal. Like I thought they were definitely one of the strongest teams going into the tourney, and they got freaking owned.
Yeah, Precedent carrying Soju is one of the most surprising things because I thought Soju picked his friend, but apparently his friend's like way better than him. So yeah, that was kind of surprising.
That's when it's cracked. You know, okay, so there's like a survey that they give you like when you go in the tourney, and it's like who you think is the strongest opponent in the tourney, and everyone put Nubal. Everyone always puts Nubal every single tourney. I was sick of putting Nubal, so I put Precedent, but I wasn't being serious. And he's actually the strongest player in the tourney.
He is the strongest player in
He's
the
the
tournament.
strongest.
Welcome everybody to the final day of the Giant Slayer series group stage. It's not that serious, but there's a lot on the line today. It's Frodan Esportslaw here to bring you the final day of action. Bryce, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
I'm hanging out with you, getting ready to watch some high-stakes TFT with some quality banter to back it up. I'm a happy camper. How about you, Dan?
Doing okay. It's the final day of 11.16. We're on the dawn of a new chapter in Teamfight Tactics, where there's going to be a lot of changes to the meta. But for one final go, we're going to send top four from today to the finale of the 2v2 tournament. $10,000 on the line. But let's go ahead and recap a little bit about what we're about to see, because we've been having a couple weeks of group play. We start off with 16 teams of 2 for a total of 32. And every single day, there's going to be 4 games across 2 lobbies of these 8 teams that's represented. The first place player of each team also earns some extra money, so there's a little bit on the line on top of points. But as we allude to at the very beginning, we're going to be taking that top 4 scoring teams, as this is the final day of pool play. And there's a lot on the line. You know, there's some pride, there's some bragging rights. Is there any teams that have stood out to you, Bryce, that we haven't really talked a lot about getting to this point yet?
I mean, we've talked a lot about Team Ramblin' Robin. I think the pre-tournament favorite, along with Team Rat Owl, but this is the one that's not disappointing coming into today so far. So, you know, that's certainly a team that's top of mind. I'm excited to see if the Mega Furts can bounce back. They had a dominant performance in week 1, the highest point total of any team any week so far, and then a little bit of a rougher week last week, but still very much in the hunt. If Jirachi and Buzzy Boo can put together another strong performance, could easily wind up in our top 4 teams.
Yep, that's right. And so for yesterday, you saw some great performances out of, GV8, for example, but Team People Riot's going to need a lot of help if they're going to make it to the top 4. In the meantime, for today, who is going to be the MVP? Who is going to be the ones popping off? Who's going to be the one narrowly missing out? Because there's a lot of points that could be rearranging who's in the top 4. We'll tell you all about it, but one team that Bryce did call out is the Mega Furts. I wonder how well they're going to do. We're taking a look at Lobby A versus Lobby B. You can already start to see that it's pretty stacked across the board. But I have to say that my attention is already on Lobby B. I know Becca and Milk have been the team to watch out for. Wide People happy. They're coming in as the points leader for day number 2. Is there any other teams that we want to call out here? Any specific players that are catching our eye here, Bryce?
I mean, HJW has performed quite well, I think, as Bertosaurus's partner, which is, one of the relative unknowns coming into the event. So excited to see how they perform in a relatively strong Lobby A. I think the exciting thing about today is that we have 5 teams, all at 89 points or higher. All of them are very capable of getting over People Riot's 123 points. So we should be in for a wild finish as we reduce this field from 16 teams all the way down to 4. In most TFT tournaments, we're kind of whittling the field away, it feels like. And this one, we're about to lop off 75%, Dan, so we should be in for a bumpy and fun ride.
That's right. $10,000 on the line, $3K for first place, $50 per one game. So even if some players and teams are mathematically eliminated, if Brontosaurus, for example, they are so far behind, but they could still at least play for those mini objectives and also, of course, be the spoilers. Or perhaps even bet on themselves. We'll see. There is an opportunity to do that if you want to hop on board with fantasytft.com. That's right. We're still giving out prizes, tickets for being able to predict who is going to do well in these lobbies. If you go over to fantasytft.com, it's free to sign up. There's an easy tutorial for you to get plugged in. And more importantly, you get to bet on who's going first and who is going 8th. So shout out, of course, to the Ball Street app, as they are the people who are sponsoring the event. The first questions that we're asking for the contest, there's 2 tournaments going on within the Fantasy TFT realm. It's who's going to win Lobby A Game 1 and who is also going to go 8th at Lobby A Game 1. That second one is the one that I personally like playing the most because, with who wins Lobby A, it's always like this scramble of basically the swings of the game, but it's also really fun to see who is also going to go 8th here to start off. Do you have any early investment, Bryce, happening on your end, or do you kind of wait and see what happens in the first carousel or so?
I'm always looking at the early markets just to see, kind of where the action is going. And I think there's probably some opportunity on the 8th place, for example, right? You have a couple people that are pretty cheap right now. I think Jack is only at 8 for an 8th. Not that I think Jack is super likely to go 8th, but probably more likely than some other players in the field. And I think good value there for those of you looking to take your action before the game gets underway.
All right, here we go. Game number 1 of the final day of the group stages here, the Giant Slayer series. We're hopping on board with a member of the Goliath team in the field of 16. When you ask all of the players who are the top team that you have to watch out for, almost unanimously across the board, it was Team Ramblin' Robin, featuring Ramblin' and Robin songs. And I think, it's really interesting to see them come out as a duo, which I believe, Bryce, that you were somewhat instrumental for the matchmaking of these 2 players. For people who don't know, Bryce personally funded a duo tournament with Raditz, who's also playing on Team Soulcaf Recon, one of the top team earners of points. And when Bryce funded and casted it, it was the first time that Robin and Ramblin' came out with Team Ramblin' Robin. So how do you feel about that, Bryce, watching your 2 babies come together and make sweet TFT love?
Yeah, it is. It's a beautiful thing. They actually won that tournament. It was an incredibly close tournament, but they wound up sneaking out with the dub. 2 of the better players. They have excellent team synergy. They tend to play in different trees. They communicate about the game really effectively and efficiently in game. They are both completely untiltable. So from a mental perspective, it's all really positive. And then the other thing is that I think, for my money, Ramblin' is the best North American player who did not qualify for Worlds or for North American regionals. So if you're getting to kind of do a draft of all the non-regional qualified players, Ramblin' tops my list. So this is an insane team. I expect them to be here when the dust settles at the end of today.
All right, starting off strong with an ability to make a Sunfire cape with the belt and the vest. Already it has the opportunity to even make gold as well. This is one of those interesting moments here for a lot of players that they kind of want to split the baby, but oftentimes it can be a struggle because you don't want to necessarily start off on a lose streak. It feels like unanimously across the board, people would prefer to win streak. Open Forward has since taken quite a backseat ever since Hellions have gotten nerfed. Interesting. A lose streak strategy.
Is he going to make 10? Is he going to commit to Kalista reroll right off the bat, Dan? I think he might. Although Jirachi's board is equally weak. This is 2 players who expected to lose the first fight. One of them is going to be sorely disappointed, and we're only 30 seconds into the game.
Oh, I mean, I think that that is unfortunately all too common for the experience of TFT, where you try to go with the game plan and you feel like you have everything sorted, and all of a sudden someone else is there to disrupt you. We're hopping on board with Jirachi, a player who is notorious for being unafraid to open for it. And for Jirachi's perspective, that was a huge win to just lose by 1 unit despite being so weak on the board. And I got a chance to even sit down and hang out with Jirachi for a watch party yesterday for a Giant Slayer series yesterday. And it was great to tap into their mindset. They are refreshed. They did have to do a big real life move, which has gotten in the way of the practice. But they're feeling like week 2 was actually the fluke and not week 1. So let's see what the Mega First got for the final day of competition.
I like it, and absolutely right. Jirachi is one of the only players I know right now near the top of the ladder that is playing a lot of loss streak intentionally. Jirachi just, for whatever reason, feels very comfortable with their back against the wall early in games. It tends to be more consistent to be able to play for a loss streak, particularly in North America. There are other regions where loss streak is more popular, and so you have to do a lot of scouting and selling of units to play, 1 unit on your board, 2 units on your board to guarantee the loss. But in NA, with so many different players vying to win streaks, so many different players trying to protect HP, Jirachi thinks that they can find an advantage in the loss streak. Just goes to show you there is more than one way to skin this cat of TFT.
Yeah, the only question that I ask is, what are some of the comms that you're thinking about when you're playing from behind? In the past, in set 5, it was, almost agreed upon that you would try to play a forgotten strategy because you had these shadow items that you can intentionally lose and get priority for on carousel. In the early stages of Dawn of Heroes in 5.5, people were thinking about Hellion reroll. What do you think is the open 4 comp now of choice?
I'm not sure there actually is one. I think that the reality situation is that there, in previous iterations of the meta, like you said, whoa, Jack has a 2-star MF. That's a spicy 2-3 board. But I digress. I'm not sure there's a single comp that you really want to play from behind. I think some of the kind of reroll compositions that you historically would want to do that for have been nerfed. Tristana reroll, Hellions were the big offender there, and with that out of the meta, there's no very consistent reroll of 1 or 2 cost comp. That being said, if the entire lobby is fighting to preserve HP and to try to contest each other for win streaks, you're going to wind up with the players who do that successfully and therefore get way ahead of the economic curve. But you're going to wind up with a bunch of people in the middle who are kind of not leaning into the streak either way. And so Jirachi, I think, is just trying to find an inefficiency in the way in which the top of the North American ladder approaches the game right now, and seeing what they can do to take advantage of that, going whatever direction they can. So I think this is an atypical open fort into somewhat versatile play style as opposed to open forting for a specific composition.
I think so, and we'll see if they're able to turn it around. But for now, I think a lot of people are actually betting that Jirachi is going 8th in the contest of Fantasy TFT. I do not blame them. It does feel like with the nerfs to comeback comps like Hellions, it makes it even more difficult for Jirachi to try to fight back. And with an early slam of Titans, I'm not entirely sure what the game plan is, but that's part of the direction of that Jirachi's taking. It's very open-ended. It can be just a generic AD composition, and with Titans and Bloodthirster, I feel like you can just fight any type of carry like you were talking about. We're gonna go ahead and move to Robin Songs with a 2-5 Rakan 2-star and an Olaf 2. This might be one of the strongest boards that you'll ever see in Stage 2.
Yeah, we saw a 2-star MF on 2-3, and I thought that was pretty spicy. But this Rakan is 2-star and a much better unit than MF, particularly in the current meta where Sentinels is so strong right now. And this Sunfire Rakan is just going to do an insane amount of work going up against an Olaf 2 with a Deathblade and an extra sword. Brontosaurus's board is good enough to beat most boards in the stage. Will he be able to cut through this Rakan? A stun comes out from the Senna. It is enough, and you look at Robin's face. He's like, I have a Rakan 2 and a Sunfire, and I just lost. Yeah, that's a feels bad man situation, Robin.
Yeah, I'm really shocked as well. I think everybody except Bert was surprised at the result of what happened there. This board, by all means, looks like it was going to go 100 on Stage 2. You have a full 5 win streak. You're chilling. You hit the 20 gold threshold. You go to 30. I guess what really makes this hurt is that Robin didn't make gold on the previous round, so his win streak got snapped. and he's not at the 10 gold interval that he would like to be to get his economy online. And while that might seem like a small thing, it has huge impact in a lobby of highly skilled players like this.
Yeah, the snowball ramifications of not making 10 there cannot be understated, right? There's a really natural cadence where you make 10 on 2.5, you make 20 on 2.6, you make 30 on 2.7. Sometimes you're able to even make 40 if you're a little bit ahead economically, get a gold star or get some extra gold from Krug. So, you know, it's not just costing himself 1 gold in that situation, right? It's costing himself 4, 5, maybe 6 gold by the time it's all said and done. Meanwhile, back to winning ways against Ramkev. Ramkev with an okay board, early possible Riven direction, but it takes it's a tough spot to wind up beating a Rakan 2 with Sunfire in this stage. Bertosaurus was able to do it, and is the only person win streaking, though it's worth noting, no one at 100 HP heading into Krug. It's not something you see every day.
Yeah, it's true. Usually you have one early front runner of who is going to be able to streak. But as we take some inventory check, we do have 2 players from the Megafords at the bottom of the standings. I am curious to see what Buzzy Boo's game plan is. I know Buzzy Boo has, you know, in his words, have, you know, effectively retired from being competitive in TFT, but it didn't stop him for putting on quite an impressive performance in week 1 with a crazy amount of top 2 finishes and getting a ton of points for the Megafords in the first place. So what is the strategy? Is, you know, Ramblin' and Robin, they're on top. Megafords are at the bottom. The lobby has a lot of shape that it can take forward in the coming rounds here.
Robin not even making 20 on Krugs. This man is going to be broke for a long, long time. A D-Claw is actually pretty good in this situation, right? His carry is functionally this Rakan, so keeping this Rakan alive as quickly as possible, or as long as possible, is going to be big. Any early AP burst that happens to be in the lobby, that D-Claw should be able to deal with quite nicely. If he can get in the Renewer, there you go, with the Soraka. This is going to be an incredibly hard Rakan to kill. I guess he decides that the Gragas 2 is too much value at this stage. He'll play the Soraka next round.
That's right. Going up against Ramblin', who has the Warmogs and the Sunfire as well. Obviously, both players would really like to minimize the losses going up against teammates. But with very similar boards, it does make me interested in what kind of trees that they're going to separate. If they're going to be contesting each other, that seems to be not a good thing if both of them want to lean towards the Dawnbringer reroll. I can't imagine that's going to be the case. That is something that's on the player's mind. A lot of times in these kinds of environments, we've been seeing players really take one side of the reroll at the similar cost. Okay, you reroll this 2 cost, I'll reroll another 2 cost. So we'll see. We're going to hop on board back with Jirachi. We did get word that some streams, POVs, we're not going to have access to just due to the instability of them. But, you know, kind of tuning back in with Jirachi. No big 3-2 roll down. Instead, Jirachi's on a 2 streak. Looks like going to continue to roll after thinking about and evaluating the position.
Yeah, this is Jirachi's approach to the game, right? Going into a loss streak, able to then win back-to-back fights at the end, which is a little bit awkward because it means that they did not actually complete their loss streak all the way into Krugs, but able to string together a 2 streak. I'm surprised we didn't see them level or roll a little bit more. This is a board that is not stable yet. A bunch of good units, Aurelia, Nidalee, Lee Sin, Riven, but the 1-star versions of those units are just not going to get it done, whereas 2-star, we might be cooking with a little bit of gas.
Yeah, and I think that Jirachi got a little hung up on the Aphelios that was in their shop as well. It was definitely something that was on the table. A lot of people love Deathblade, Bloodthirster on Aphelios, but with, you know, no Ginsu's Rageblade, it does feel like Aphelios might have trouble even getting 1 cast off in a fight. So, you know, I think that this could be something that Jirachi is kind of racking their brain, like, what are we supposed to really do in this position? It's very, very tricky. And it doesn't seem like it's improving. So we're going to hop off and tune in what Jack is doing, who looks like is the early stages of a Misfortune reroll composition.
What patch is this?
Well, I'm not I mean, it's 1.16b, 11.16b, but I think this comp actually has some legs still. I've seen some people still take a very reliable top 4 with Misfortune reroll.
Yeah. It's an interesting spot because, you know, we were comparing Robin's 2-star Rakan to Jack's 2-star MF. And Robin's 2-star Rakan is just such a valuable unit at the beginning, middle, and end of the game that it makes tons of sense. Whereas Jack's is really crushing his econ. If you don't have a really significant front line in front of Misfortune, she's not able to carry in the way that like a Riven or a Nidalee is in the early game, even at 2-star. And here we see Jack at 70 HP. He's lost 5 rounds in a row. and he's rolled all the way down to 10 gold, right? He's completely broke in the middle of stage 3. So awkward position from Jack. I've seen this composition fare well in general, I agree, but I feel like you need extremely strong conditions for it, and with this amount of rolling and having a Hecarim one and a Sejuani one and a Nautilus one, I'm just not sure the spot is it. I feel like Jack going 8th place stock should be trending up right now.
Well, I mean, if you get Misfortune at 2-star by 2-3,
okay,
wow, and you're hitting like this. Okay, look, if this isn't a Misfortune position, Bryce, then it's never a Misfortune angle.
Agreed.
I feel like this is the condition that should be met here. I'm down to actually slam this item and sell this rel. I think a lot of people would be thinking about how to play rel, but in reality, rel is an extra unit that you add on top after you've solidified your existing core board. And that's what Jack is doing. A quick scout around. There's not actually too much to do. Part of what makes the Misfortune comp even strong, you know, from a tactical perspective, is that you actually don't have to think too much about positioning. It's quite linear in terms of what you want to do.
Yes, it absolutely is. Basically, keep them Misfortune safe from any early teched-in assassins. You don't want Kha'Zix isolation damage, and otherwise you should be good to go. This Dragon's Claw is very, very good in this Misfortune. So much of the damage from this composition is magic damage. We have a War of Attrition fight. It's two very, very tanky teams, and who can outlast the other one? It appears that Robin Songs will be reigning supreme. Can this last Misfortune cast take care of it? It cannot. 6 losses in a row for Jack. Maybe it's just never a Misfortune angle.
Maybe not. Ooh, we're happening with Ramkev, who has access to a bunch of different interesting things. I was thinking about how Runins would work really well with Riven in particular, but he chose to go for the Shroud. Any opinions here now that we're kind of like dialing in a little bit to Ramkev's perspective?
Yeah, if there was no extra sword on the Riven, then I would have agreed. You just immediately go with the Runin's Hurricane. It's an amazing item for Riven as her third carry item. But look, that's going to be your carry for a long time. You've got a sword already committed to it, so there's nowhere for that Runin's Hurricane to go. Unfortunately, he has a Reforger instead of a Remover in order to be able to kind of figure that out. So he just goes with the most powerful overall item. Shroud is an incredibly strong item. The slowing down of enemy casts is paying dividends right now as well as later in the game, and the extra mana on all your units does not hurt either.
It doesn't hurt for sure. And, you know, it is interesting that Ramkev is going for this Dawnbringer approach. Takes another loss. He's going to be the first player to cross the 40 health threshold to activate the Radiant Blessing. Does get full streak, but Ramkev is pretty far from stabilizing. He's looking at Jirachi versus Jack.
Wow.
With that Titans and that Bloodthirster that Jax was whacking away. But Jirachi does end up taking the loss. However, I don't think Jirachi is on pace to be the first to go 8th place here. It is Ramkev who does end up finding a couple of reasonable item components. More belts and Dawnbringers is not bad. Can complete Giant Slayer, totally fine. Of the last item on Riven. But the problem is that it feels like Ramkev just has a scuffed comp. I just can't really say it any other way. 5 Dawnbringer, 2 Legionnaire, nothing else really supporting that Riven with 1-star Grox in the front line. This is just not it right now. What are you going to do, Ramkev? Are you going to roll it down here?
Yeah, his comp isn't coming together. His stream is falling apart on him. It's all over the place. Okay, does make the Karma, so committed into likely a 6 Dawnbringer line from this position if he can find a way to make that happen. Rolling all the way down. Finds a Volibear. That is a really big early hit. Wow, he has the full Revenant package, Dan. I take it back. It is 4 Dawnbringer plus Revenants from this spot. Wow, gets the upgrades. A couple Nidalees in the shop. He's got to find a way to get this Volibear in, no?
He does, but he doesn't have the time to be able to reposition everything and put things in a reasonable manner, so he's just going to stall and hold. Actually, no items completed for Ramkev. This is another understanding on his side, saying, I'm probably going to just sack this round, or like, I hope that I don't lose by very many units. Incidentally, it looks like that's exactly what's happening. I don't know if we're able to actually take down this Jax. One, that Karma 2 actually is fully online, actually putting out some pretty good damage. Not a bad loss, but again, we're in a situation where Ramkev wants to take 0 losses from this point forward. Crack of the knuckles, sitting up straight. What are you going to do, Ramkev?
Well, he's got a Death Blade, so that's going to be a good starting point. He has to figure out what he wants his board to be. Is he going to stick with the 6 Dawnbringers, or is he going to put in the Revenants? Okay, we're going with the Revenants. That makes perfect sense. I agree with that. His board has got a lot stronger. He does have his 2-star Karma. I would really like to see him find Oh, God. I was going to say, I really like using the Reforge in this situation, right? The bow feels really useless. Why not Reforge first and figure out if he's either going to be able to make a death cap or a blue buff for this Karma? I'm not really sure why he wants to hold the Reforge in the situation. It feels to me sometimes, Dan, like people don't play around that item, right? It's kind of an afterthought as opposed to a part of the game plan. Would you agree with that, or do you think he has a different vision for the redemption or for the Reforger in this angle?
I mean, I like what your head's at. I didn't even really think about reforging the bow, necessarily, because I do agree that Ramcat needs to do something. The Riven gets shrouded by the Mistral, and that's going to be a full removal of essentially Riven
and the
Viego. And the Karma. The Karma's going to turn. These are the two carries that Ramkev needed to do. Just look at his face. He is completely surprised and shocked and horrified about how bad of a loss this looks like to be, as Robin is going to crush Ramkev. He is now down to 1.5 lives. And just when he thought that maybe he was on the verge of stabilizing, perhaps that is not the case. However, it does seem like if in the contest for 8th place, Buzzy Boo has been slowly but surely making his way down. And I will say that Ramkev's board is still very close to stabilizing. I mean, by all means, the quality of his board isn't bad. I just think he got heavily outpositioned there by Robin Songs. Yeah.
Robin Songs is a sweat. There's a reason why everyone calls him that. Even in the opening, we had Soulless and Kurum talking about it. There are a few players that are just so clean in their micro on a round-over-round basis, using their Shrouds, using their Zephyrs, and Robin says, hey, I can do that. I can track my opponents. I can make sure I'm getting maximum value. I'm going to go for this Radiant Zephyr, and just does work. Absolutely swings the fight. I am very confident Ramkev's board is stronger than Robin's. If he gets his core units going early, just not able to get it done. Can he turn it around against Jack, though?
Well, the Misfortune ends up getting the one last tick. It's now down to Soraka and Daisy versus Hecarim, and there's just not enough DPS to take down this Hecarim. So Ramkev, yet another loss. 9 losses in a row. It's not looking good for Ramkev. Does he want to actually roll it down on 8? Depends on his carousel pick.
Jack laughing at his teammate, Dan. Some monkey dog on monkey dog crime, and Jack is thrilled to death with it.
Is he, though? I'm not entirely sure. Ramkev beelining for the Rod, trying to see if he can itemize his Karma, and looks like Jack doesn't even know exactly what he wants himself. Oh. All the items are just being taken away. He takes the bow. I guess Giant Slayer. There's no tier. Oh, there's no tier for the Misfortune because she has 2 AP items, and you want the Shojin so that she can find a way. I think the laugh was more of a pained laugh here, Bryce, if I were to retroactively analyze his emotions, as I'm supposed to do on broadcast. We're going to roll it down, though. We're at level 6, maximize those odds at 40%. Okay. See if we can continue to find the 3 stars that we're chasing. We're still pretty far away. I guess from Jack's perspective, he can wait till at least he gets the Radiant Blessing for the full set.
Yeah, he's got a couple components coming from that. His good guy teammate, Ramkev, letting him know, hey, the blessing is a couple of components. So if you're in Jack's position, you do not need to panic. You still have 46 HP. Get the blessing. See if you can get a Shojin. It's a big difference to have the mana ramp onto this Misfortune. And there's so much potential power here for Jack. He has 7 Hecarims, 6 Thresh, 6 Misfortune. So a full send, and he could spike a huge amount. I expect him to do that after this round because this is going to be a bad loss into Robin.
Another loss for the Monkey Dogs, and you can see that Jack was keeping tabs on Ramkev.
Ramkev won a round!
A win!
We did it!
Okay,
do we get a tier? No. These were not the droids that this man was looking for. Desperately needs to find a tier. Wow, finds a bunch of the units he's looking for.
Yeah, even
finds a Draven finally to get in there. And now we can itemize this Draven. Interesting. Okay, so he's just going to go with itemization of the Draven. Actually, not a bad spot for Jack in the end because now he's got a secondary carry. No potential Shojin left for the Misfortune. But I like this angle. Do you agree with this, or would you agree with the items for one more turn?
I like it. I think right now, from Jack's perspective, he recognizes that he needs every bit of life because he's just far from the 3 stars. Look at it! 8 Threshes, 8 Hecarims, 7 Sejuani, 6 Misfortunes. And it just doesn't seem like Jack has everything online yet. But look at this Draven, able to crank out a pretty significant amount of damage. Enough to maybe turn the tides of the fight. It's definitely better than Main 1 doing nothing. Ramkev was again, BuzzyBoo's in 7th place. All of a sudden, are the Monkey Dogs able to turn this around and maybe salvage a 5th and 6th place? That would be huge for their chances here.
Okay, that's really big. I was really worried that he was going to start finding a bunch of misfortunes and not be able to buy them because of the situation. So finding that Thresh, in addition to just having that initial 3-star, is such a relief, Dan. I have seen you wind up in that spot a couple of times where the bench is full, and that is a real feels bad situation. Meanwhile, Ramkev did send it all the way on 7. He has 7 Karmas, Dan. I'm not sure Karma 3 is going to save him, but boy, would I love to see it.
That's right. I mean, I have seen some people climb reasonably by flexing in the Dawnbringer tree. Cottontail comes to mind, who's been doing very well with it. But it's not been successful for each player, and we'll get to see whether or not players like Ramkev and Jack, who are playing unusual strategies, can succeed. In the meantime, we're hopping on board with Robin Songs, who is looking for the completion of his 6 Sentinel board. Does have a ton of 1-stars. In fact, the only 2-star that I see is
my god,
a triple Draven shot that he just passes because it doesn't really fit the bill of what he's trying to look for. In fact, if he picked up every single Draven, there's an argument that he could have even chased Draven 3 this game.
Oh, that feels so bad. He saw like 100 Dravens, 50 Aphelios. He saw basically every 4 cost in the game, 100 different copies. Could not find another Lucian, could not find an Auction. Definitely not the roll down that Robin was looking for, but just goes for the consistent play. Nico's the Lucian, takes his win against Burtosaurus. We are in HP preservation mode. He is playing for a top 4. I know you're starting to like the Sentinel tree, but I'm just not seeing a path to a top 2 from here. Am I wrong about this?
Yeah, you're super wrong. I
love it.
What you do, I only say that because in every Sentinel comp, there's always the possibility of hitting Akshan, and Akshan is more than capable of basically single-handedly buying you a ticket to top 2. But he is far away from that, and so we'll see. Maybe Robin Song is just saying, hey, we're Rambling Robin, we're just playing for top 4s right now, and we'll go from there. In the meantime, speaking of players who are kind of on the cusp of the top 4, we have Bert that has the Renewer spat of which he picked up, and trying to piece together a Revenant Ranger comp. It's very hard to pull it off, but if you do, it does have one of the highest caps in the game, and he has 2 auctions with a full bench of items. How is Bert not dizzy at this point? You can see him rearranging everything, trying to see if he can get all of his positioning and his items online.
I'm dizzy just watching this man. He did get great items for the Radiant Blessing. He winds up with a Hodge for his Auction. He winds up with a Ginsu's Rageblade for his Aphelios too. He does have a bit of a frontline problem, but he has a Viego 2 to combat that frontline problem, though with the Radiant Trap Claw on BuzzyBoo's side, it's going to be very, very tough. Meanwhile, BuzzyBoo's Viego is all over this Aphelios. Aphelios does live, though, and it's going to slowly ramp up with his Ginsu. Can it get killed before it dies? Okay, it's able to get enough damage now. The Viego steals the Nocturne, and it nets Burtosaurus the win. Such a close fight. Those Viegos were just doing an absurd amount of work on both sides, Dan.
Yeah, that's right. And BuzzyBoo does end up surviving long enough. Ramkev takes 8th place, as he just was not able to stabilize. Very unfortunate for the Monkey Dogs, but we're hopping on board with the player who was starting off lose streaking, the early frontrunner for that 8th place contest, which is now closed. Ramkev has the dubious honor of winning that first contest. And Jirachi has turned around their lose streak very well. 47 life, scouting very well. Seems to have Jax online, ready to go, using Lee Sin as the flex position unit, holding a bunch of utility items. This is really cool to see Jirachi stabilizing with a 1-star Jax, and that's the power of the Fortnite Jax composition. You don't actually need to get everything to 2-star to have a reasonably powerful board.
Yeah, Jax 1 is probably the strongest 4-cost carrier for Stage 4 into the early stages of Stage 5. Obviously, Jirachi would prefer to have a Jax 2 at this stage, but against boards that are not able to get through his Knight front line, that Jax is still able to scale up and do an enormous amount of work. Of course, when you go up against BuzzyBoo and they're saying, I don't really care so much about your Knight front line, I intend to jump over that and kill all of your important units, and then I'll deal with the Knights at the end. So a very, very bad loss from Jirachi, who's going to get access to the Radiant Blessing. Also lost to his teammate and kept BuzzyBoo alive. So not the worst loss in the world as far as losses go.
Right, looking to see if they can get The Last Whisper initially ends up going for Thieves Gloves instead, passing up the ability to go for the Zephyr. We'll see whether or not this is enough for Jirachi to be able to carry the momentum forward here. Probably going to continue to roll down. I do not feel like Jirachi's in the best spot for top 4, but maybe trying to bleed out and outlast some of the players.
Okay.
Finds Jax 2. It's really big.
Redemption's big too. Redemption does so much work on these night comps, right? Because again, it's all about a war of attrition when you're playing this composition, and so having this extra effective HP across your board is just so valuable. Already has the Sunfire. Whoa, a double locket! So much effective HP on this board, Dan.
That's right. There's a ton of shields in a comp that has a lot of effective HP. Great reposition. Jirachi always clean with that micro. Ends up being on the side to confront Ramblin's Jax. Does the Shroud make that difference? We'll find out. Are the extra shields enough? The Rail doesn't end up casting and stops Ramblin from being able to ramp up his Jax. His Jax is just constantly being chain CC'd, but now it's starting to turn the other way for Ramblin as well, with the Viego stalling for the back line. The Jax ends up dropping from Ramblin, so that should give Jirachi the edge in this fight, unless Viego can start turning the units around and just have too many units to account for.
Got
Viego trying to work. Not going to be enough. Jirachi should have turned the corner here in this fight and deal Ramblin a big blow to start activating Ramblin's Radiant Blessing, but it's not without losses for the Megafurs. Buzzy Boo out in 7th, HJW down in 6th, and as we get to the end of Stage 5, almost every player has collected their Radiant Blessings, but it's hard to bet against Ramblin Robin going into the end of Stage 5, leading to Stage 6 here, as Ramblin is going to go ahead and roll a little bit to see if he can improve his board.
Yeah, very unlikely that Ramblin's able to get to 8, just securing the top 4 position, trying to get a little bit stronger if he can. Does sell the auction, just no space on the board for it. So Ramblin says, this is the composition that I'm playing. Repositions and winds up in a pretty good spot against, I think this is Robin's Ghost. So this is nice. When teammates play each other and you play the Ghost, if Ramblin is able to win, then they kind of dodge this bullet and no damage done. But is Ramblin able to win? Robin's Ghost solution is just doing an unbelievable work to the back line, but Ramblin's Jax is ramping up and taking care of business. Nice win from Ramblin. Meanwhile, Robin loses another fight, so both of them around 30 HP. Everyone after this round will have seen that Radiant Blessing, and we have a very tight and getting tighter final 5 as we head into the final, or the Stage 5 neutral round.
No one's guaranteed top 4 quite yet. Jirachi and Jack seems to be 2 players that are trying to fight for that 4th place spot. Jack, from what I saw, did not have Misfortune 3 online yet, but almost everything else 3-star. Quite a frustrating spot for the player that's re-rolling, right? How many times have you played, say, a Yasuo comp, and it seems like you 3-star everything else but Yasuo, or Riven, and you 3-star every other Dawnbringer and Sentinel that you don't necessarily need as much as the Riven. We've all been there. In the meantime, the AD flex players seem to be ruling this lobby. Ironclad is the name of the game here. Let's see what Robin is going to roll down and hit. Ideally, we have to hit Jax 2, passing by a bunch of legendary minions as well. Is he going to potentially chase a Fabled Lucian 3 here?
Got 2 auctions as well. He could easily pivot in the auction if he finds one more, but there's no way that auction 1 is better than Lucian 2. Let's see if he repositions this Zephyr. He does a little bit of last-second scouting. Okay, so he's clearly trying to deal with Jack's board. Doesn't come up against Jack's board, but does wind up onto the rail, so pretty good. Actually, looks like he's playing... He went from Ramble playing Robin's Ghost to Robin playing Ramblin's Ghost, Dan.
Yeah, it's actually very nice, again, because you minimize the amount of damage that you can take. It does seem like positioning-wise... that Ramblin's board is very nicely spotted for what Robin's trying to do. Jax immediately crushes the front line, goes to the back of Lucian. Robin's hoping that this is not a critical amount of damage. He takes enough to put him at 1 life. Jirachi and Jack both lose, though. And Jack, by taking secured. 1 less damage, ends up being a top 4, which is great for Jack and very frustrating for Jirachi, who looked like they were just on the verge of being able to make it to the top 4.
Yeah, very frustrating, but honestly not a bad spot considering that Jirachi had such a low roll opening. Robin trying to figure out if he's prepared to give up on this auction out and commit to this board. He is not. He wants that auction. in. He wants that potential power, so he decides to sell the Olaf. I agree with this. Meanwhile, we are in the classic duos 2v1 situation, Dan. Both players positioning specifically for Bursaurus's board, and they play each other again. It feels like all we're doing is watching it. Meanwhile, definitely better positioning for Robin this time, as that Jax is on the other side, not going to get the early access onto the Lucian. The Lucian is wailing away onto that Aurelia. Aurelia still able to tank up just so much, tanking us with the Warmogs, Redemption, and the Sunfire. Lucian fires its ult at absolutely nothing, and the Jax is there once again. Robin's Lucian, I feel like, it's just deja vu. We just see it getting pounded by this Jax over and over and over again. Robin takes a third place. Not bad from his spot. And by the way, I remember saying I don't know how he tops twos from there, and here we are.
I mean, Ramblin is in a very, very nice spot. He actually has a really good matchup and teched in with the 3 Ironclads versus the Ranger Revenants from Bursaurus. Looks like it just seems to be the AD reigning supreme here. All 4 players, or actually rather, if Jirachi had made top 4, all 4 players in the top 4 would be playing the AD tree. The reposition the Viego, try to chase down the Aphelios. The Shroud is prepared, giving up full Banshee's Call value.
Oh,
and this is the exact position that Ramblin is looking for. Viego is on the Aphelios. It's time for the Akshan 2 to get to their backline. Whose backline access will reign supreme here, Bryce?
Wow, I mean, get outplayed, son, is all I have to say. I mean, just beautiful from Ramblin. He reads the swap back. He sees the swap. He carries his Viego over, and that is a great example of what makes Ramblin such a special player. There's 2 ways to approach positioning in these late game situations. You can wind up doing a ton of repositioning, move your board around, try to get all the different units into different good places that are going to net what you're looking for in the fight. Ramblin says, forget about all of that. My position is generically strong. My opponent doesn't have a level of backline access to the relevant units. This is a Jax carry situation, so losing out on a Lucian is not a big deal. And he says, all I need to do in the situation is make sure that my Aphelios gets onto, or sorry, make sure that my Viego gets onto the Aphelios, and if I do that, I can win the fight, and that's exactly what he does. Can he replicate as we head into potentially the final fight, Dan?
It's so scary. There are 4 tiers on Viego. He nearly instantly casts the second he's able to jump. A full corner positioning from Bert. And more importantly, there's a Diana from Bert on the other side to try to see if he can disrupt his back line. I'm not entirely sure who's going to win this fight. The Viego into 2 ends up coming out. It immediately starts targeting Ramblage Jax, but dropped by the Rel stun. Here comes Akshan 2 versus Lucian. There are guns blazing everywhere. And all the damage that Jax has turned, Viego 2 from Bursaurus has swung the fight completely, and now it's Ramblin that's on the chopping block. No matter what, we're going to see the game end before we go to stage number 7. Ramblin once more with the roll down, see if he can improve his board anymore. But I think Bert has figured out with the Volibear 2, with the full corner positioning, is there anything that Ramblin can do from this spot, Bryce?
I'm not sure that there is, Dan. I mean, we talked about the win condition heading into the last fight. Ramblin recognizing he had to steal the Aphelios. Bert saw it and said, you know what? If you're going to beat me in this fight, you're going to beat me straight up. I'm going to full protect my Aphelios, give you absolutely no access with your Viego, and if you can somehow cut through my insane Revenant front line, my dual carry composition with the ramping Aphelios and the Akshan, so be it. I don't see how it's possible, but maybe. You never know.
Oh my goodness, so the Viego's immediately on the Akshan too! And he's going to be able to not turn it, though, at the very last second. Akshan barely slings away. I heard that the Spider-Man trailer released early, and it turned out it was true. Akshan slings away and is able to get Bursaurus to victory, and that's going to be game 1 on the final day of the Giant Slayer series pool play. Well done by Bursaurus. I couldn't figure out a more inappropriate name than we are going 8th for Bursaurus' team. This guy is absolute monster. So many players put Bursaurus in their top 3 players of North America over some fan favorites, right? Some people don't even put Sox or Soju or Kion in some of these players' lists, but a lot of them put Bert for a reason. You can see why this guy, when he's on fire, is sometimes just unstoppable when he's clicking.
Yeah, he absolutely is one of the best players in North America. I agree. I don't think he ever quite gets his due, right? He's had some unbelievable tournament performances in the past, but never done it kind of on the big stage, if you will, right? He's done it in some of the ramp-up tournaments. The reality is, you know, in the young history of TFT, we haven't had that many kind of marquee events that everyone's eyes are on it, and so just a little RNG or how good you are on that patch. But Bursaurus looking very strong in this tournament overall so far. very nice win from him, and excited to see him both for the rest of this tournament and in regionals.
I mean, collectively, they've earned $250 just from winning 5 different lobbies. But if you consider that so far, they've only played 9 lobbies, you're telling me they've won 5 of 9 that they've played in? That's pretty outrageous, just as a statistic right now. Bertosaurus really putting the work alongside HJW for We Are Going In.
Whoa, meanwhile, in Lobby B, Becca and Delicious Milk finishing bot 2. So all of a sudden, we had our point leader from this group, Wide People Happy, coming in such a good spot, seeming very much in the driver's seat to qualify for the finals. They've fallen all the way back into 3rd of this group. They're on the outside looking in for that Final 4.
That's real spicy. It feels like everyone kind of paired together outside of Bry and Melton Hart, the Pokygom fan club coming up huge here, despite them being very far behind, making a potential deep run. Of course, Why People Happy coming in day number 2 at 96 points. It was quite a low bar for them to be able to do well today and make it to the top 4. They don't have to actually put on like a consistent top 4 performance, but 7th and 8th does make things very interesting heading into game number 2. Congrats to Melton Hart and Bry for earning another $50. But they do have a lot more room, a lot more ground rather, that they got to make up if they're going to crack the top 4.
Yeah, not impossible mathematically for the Pokygom fan club to get over the 123-point threshold, but basically mathematically impossible. So a good opening from them with, maybe we can get some more 1-2 finishes and we could see them get over. Remember, the number to beat heading into today was 123, right? If you get above 123, I think you have a pretty good shot of getting in. It seems like 8875 and Sold Cats for Econ are very solidly in. It's possible with 5 teams today at the 89-point threshold or above going in that you could have 3 teams from today actually qualifying into the finals and getting over that 133. But look, only time is going to tell. We've only played 1 game so far today, Dan. We got 3 more to go. Should be a wild ride.
Yep, that's right. And, every single game, you should assume that players on average, if they just get a 4.5, is 10 points. And some players are exactly at that cutoff, right? Like whether or not they can get those 10 points from this point forward should qualify for them for the Final 4. But Ramblin' Robin is looking good. We Are Going 8th, making kind of a run. If they're able to put together another lobby like that, we might see them in the top 4. In the meantime, we're going to head over to Lobby B. That's going to be the focus for our fantasy TFT of who's going to get first. We're going to hop on board with Bry, who was able to win that previous lobby. I'm going to go ahead and take a second to pull up their match history to see if we can get a peek into what exactly happened in that lobby.
And by the way, if you potentially wanted to go for a double down situation, the value on Bry, not bad heading into this next game. Solus also incredibly cheap. So if you're interested in kind of looking for some stocks, a lot of people have Milk in a bounce back situation, the most expensive so far. And I can see it. Milk is an amazing player, potentially at the top of their game right now. You never know which Milk you're going to get, but Bry, a lesser-known commodity, taking the W in Game 1. You love to see that. I think one of the really fun aspects of this duos format is that we're going to see a lot of players compete in a tournament for TFT on a big stage where, we don't know a lot about him. Bry is not a player that I had a lot of experience casting or watching on the ladder coming in, so it's always cool to see, are they playing in a different way? Do they have a different approach to the game?
Starting off with a lot of gold. Very nice opening just because you want to be able to have the gold to purchase. Many players say that they are in comfortable spots when they get that early gold. Finds an opportunity for Gragas 2. Right? Of course, not having the greatest in previous week's performances. If you take a look at some of the results that we've seen across, Bry and overall Pokygom Fan Club is kind of on the lower end of performances with 71. And I think that overall Bry has shown some opportunities to get to the top 4, but also a lot of bot 4. So that first must have been felt really good in that first round. Starting off with a lot of Leonas and a lot of Knights going on here, Bryce. When you look at this, there's been some whispers of how powerful a Callista Knight reroll could be in the mix. Is this a position where you entertain that idea, or do you feel like because you have no Callistas, you can't go for it?
Yeah, I feel like because you have no Callistas, you can't go for it. Bry has a very severe damage problem in this situation, right? If we just play this board, we're playing 3 tanks and nothing that's really capable of killing units. So if Bry happens to go up against a board that's really weak and has no front line, maybe able to kill a unit that way. Wow, Melton Heart, Bry's partner, with level 4, but only 3 units on the board, Dan. Not something you see every day. Does have that paper thin front line and just a Lee Sin and a Yasuo 1. So Bry able to kill some units, but with no damage dealers, just not an ideal situation for Bry's board. Melton Heart takes the win over their teammate.
That's okay. It's just to start off. I've seen a lot of people who start off with the loss, but we're going to hop on board with Delicious Milk, who did get his first win at stage 2-1. Milk told me that this might be the tournament that he feels the most nervous for that he's ever competed in, because he doesn't want to let Becca down. There's been a lot of pressure put on his shoulders, and he kind of like mentioned to me, he's like, oh, I really hope I do well. I can't believe I care this much about the tournament. Like, I really don't want to lose. And now that there's kind of like, friendly banter between him and Soju and the rest of it, it feels like Milk really, really, really above everything else wants to do well this tournament. And he did a great job last week. It was his turn to carry Becca, where he's able to put on top 4 performances despite having, a little bit of difficulties on ladder. Milk actually struggled a ton last week, putting on a very dubious 888-778 performance in ranked, to which he said, I don't get TFT, and then quit. But he since been back, and it seems like he might be okay in a spot here. Very nice little 2-win streak to start off stage 2. But when you see these items, 1 vest and 2 tiers, what really stands out to you? You think it's the AP tree here from here, Bryce?
Yeah, with 2 tiers, it almost certainly winds up being in the AP tree. We saw a similar spot last week where actually Pocky Gum slammed a blue buff and then wound up putting together a really impressive win on just a super unusual board with a Gwen carry at the end of the game. Milk opting for probably the more consistent route, I would say, where he doesn't slam the blue buff because there just aren't a lot of good blue buff holders in the game right now. Because Karma is in such a weak state as a 4 cost, and she's really the only real carry that wants it, unless you have a Brand 2 or a Ziggs 2 early to hold that blue buff. It's just kind of hard to envision where it goes until you get to the ultra late game, and then you can put it onto Teemo or Gwen. So Milk going for the more consistent version. It looks like he's going to level here and going to 5. I know I like this, Dan. I know you like this. Is there any world in which you're not leveling there, or is it always level in that spot?
I think that it's a very good call just because he wants to preserve his streak. And there's a lot of reasons to benefit from it. Of course, your board gets stronger, you preserve your eco, but Milk is still making gold. And I think a lot of times people who just level to 5 sometimes do it blindly without understanding the risks associated with it. If you level to 5 and you lose at 2-3 or 2-5, you open yourself up to massive econ differences compared to the rest of the lobby. Robin was a player who actually did that, right? He went for the level and lost and had 0 gold to make interest follow up. I love Milk's position. I think it was a very well-calculated risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great call that he was still able to make 10 and, not just pre-level, put an extra level in all the way to level 5 on 2-3. So Milk choosing, hey, I get this strong gold opener. I'm down a component. How do I use that gold opener to win this game or to score my highest placement? And he winds up opting into the level there. I really like it. I think it did swing that fight, having that extra Vladimir on the board. Now able to get a Sunfire, so he's going to have the generically strongest early tank item, as well as the potential to make 20 gold here if he wants. Yeah, he's going to choose to put in this brand, guaranteeing that he can make 20 gold even if he loses. So, you mentioned that you don't want to lose on 2-3 or 2-5. I agree with that, certainly, but in this spot, if you were to lose, not the end of the world, still able to make 20 gold, still in a solid spot. We saw Robin not even making 10 this round, so Milk going to make 20 feels pretty good.
Yeah, but not every player's Robin songs. Who's just eternally consistent. Robin quite possibly can be the scariest ladder tournament hybrid player outside of Mismatch Socks in North America. But another player who's also very equally frightening is Kuramax from Team Pogo, or as Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora, and Eric Do Alonquist like to call Team Pogo.
Team Pogo.
I'm
Team Pogo all the way.
Team Pogo all the way. We got a chance to hear their thoughts right before the tournament started. Kurum and Soul said that their teamwork for week 1 was non-existent. They didn't even really talk about strategy. They just both played as if it was a game of, in their words, solo queue, right? They just felt like they were playing by themselves. Hey, if I'm just going to play this comp, if my teammate's playing against me or they're in my pool, whatever, strongest boards, try to play tempo. And they said, you know what, that's actually not working out nearly as well. Let's change it up for week number 2. And the results follow. They did really well going into week number 3. Can they be the ones who break the top 4 in the point standings? They're going to need a little bit of help. And right now, based off Kerm's board state, it's a very generic one. Doesn't seem like it's particularly powerful, but with Rageblade and Hodge, it feels like he can play a lot of different compositions, even in the AP tree.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I think there are a couple of different compositions that he can go from here. And you're right, this Ginsu's Rageblade, I think, is an item that was historically viewed as purely an AD item. And I certainly would lean there. It's most powerful on Aphelios or Akshan or KO right now, all of whom are kind of AD item holders. Plus, he has an extra sword as well. So, yeah, if I'm in Kerm's spot, I would prefer to play AD, but I'm absolutely open to AP if I wind up getting the items and units that make that kind of necessary under the circumstances.
Yeah, and you can see him holding stockpiling the Knights. A lot of people love that 4 Knights opening, as it does provide a ton of tankiness. 40 damage blocked flat across all allies. It makes everything pretty tanky, but especially the 2-star Knights. A quick scout around. It seems like Milk is streaking. A very nice start to Team White People Happy. Both him and Becca are in the top 2. Meanwhile, Setsuko and Solus, 2 players who are at the bottom. But those look like Setsuko is on the more open fort side at 70 HP. I am curious to see if they can turn it around. Whoa! Speaking of turning around, Kerm goes ahead and slams that Deathblade instantly. He is leaning towards that AD tree immediately, trying to see if he can get that Aphelios online.
Yeah, absolutely. Aphelios with those items will slap. We saw Aphelios take Lobby 1, probably the highest cap power potential, I would say, of any of the 4 cost carries right now is Aphelios. Just so much value with the ramping, scaling, and gets to play a lot of the strong units, right? You can take advantage of the Revenant frontline. You oftentimes wind up playing Rel, which is one of the strongest tanks in the game, to go along with Sejuani. You get to play Akshan, which is very good. Meanwhile, Setsuko's board, he's also in a generic AD position. It'll be interesting to see what he decides to do. Okay, so he's going to slam the Zeke's, Dan. If you slam a Zeke's here, are you just committing to the Assassin tree?
It feels like it, right? Like, Setsuko has the Nocturne, has the Zeke's, and Zeke's is pretty much a slam only in Assassins. And there is, something to be said about declaring your intent early in a lobby like this, just to ensure that no one gets too cute and pivots into it. That being said, I will say that from this spot is often how I see Assassins bot 4. Assassins is a comp that feels like it can hard stabilize even as low as your last life at 10 HP and then win out in top 4, top 2. But I feel like the stars have to align, Bryce. I can't tell you how many times I've hit everything and had 1 HP or 1 life to give, and I just died and took a 7th with Nocturne 3 and Fiddlesticks with Assassin's Pad, and everything looked really good on paper.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's when everything looks really good on paper. This is not an everything looks good on paper situation. There are some 3-cost carries, Nidalee, Riven, or Yasuo, that are able to, with the right items, stabilize a board in stage 3. Even at 1-star. Nocturne 1 is not one of those carries. No Revenant, so it doesn't have a built-in GA. Even if it did, it's only going to come back at basically, 100 HP under the circumstances. Only a Runaan's Hurricane. No crit items on the Nocturne yet. Only the 2 Assassin buff in, so the only thing you can really say about this spot is that he's a little on the richer side of things. 40 gold, level 3-2, already level 6 is pretty good, but Setsuko is going to wind up very, very low on HP from this board. There are no boards that we have seen yet that Setsuko is capable of beating or even really killing a bunch of units.
Yeah, it's true. It seems like Setsuko's not only losing, but losing quite badly in some of the fights that he's going up against. We're going to go ahead and switch over to the other player who's in 7th place, Solus, and catch up with him. Does seem like he's leaning more towards finding an opportunity to play Vel'Koz. He's storing up those redeemed units, but doesn't have the A-bomb, doesn't have the stabilization. Instead, trying to use Ziggs 1. In fact, almost everything is 1-star except for the Leona 2. And I feel like I'm noticing this a lot, Bryce, which is just raw, unadulterated, debaucherous greed. How are you not going to roll at all on 3-2 and just play 1-star Ziggs? Is this good enough? to get Solos in the position that he wants to, or is he just going to suffer more severe losses at the hand of his opponents, including Becca right now, who's just looking to tear up the front line? Ends up being a 4-unit loss, so more damage heading Solos' way.
Yeah, from one first or eighth board to another first or eighth board, both Setsuko and Solus, very weak positions in the middle of stage 3, opting not to roll their gold. Solus even sold a Fiddlesticks there, Dan, so he is basically foregoing the Abomination out, and it looks like he's just completely all in on the Redeem Tree, and you know, praying that he's going to find a Vel'Koz, so very weak position. Worth noting also that for Solus and Setsuko, 2 players that are playing from behind, both of whom desperately needed offensive components, you see this carousel, and boy, does it hurt. So Setsuko was able to get a bow, so not the end of the world, but no rods, no tears, unhappy Solus, I think, to say the least.
All right, well, we're hopping on board with a member of Why People Happy, Becca, who did take 7th place alongside Milk in the previous game. Looks like she's setting up for a very classic Riven Dawnbringer approach here. Has everything in place except for one crucial aspect, which is damage items for Riven. There's a lot of times when you're playing this composition, you might have all the surrounding pieces, the composition, the synergies, the support utility items like Sunfire and Trapclaw. But if you don't have Riven items, I can't stress to you how weak Riven without items is on stage 3 and stage 4, even if you get Riven to 2-star. So from Becca's perspective, she is really hoping on 3-6 the Radiant Armory can give her one of Riven's best items. But the good news is that Riven's one of the most flexible champions in TFT that can hold many items. And also she's going up against Setsuko, who's basically just open forwarding at this point. So an easy win. Becca plays back-to-back weak players with Solus and Setsuko. A very nice matchmaking
disciplined
outcome for her.
Scouts and Seas. Whoa, a Nico and 3 components? Oh, this is a BG situation. You called it exactly right, Dan. Riven desperately needed a damage item here. Demon Slayer is certainly the best item among these, but not a situation you're happy in when Riven could be using Deathblade, Runin's Hurricane, Last Whisper, RFC, Hand of Justice. There are so many different great Riven items, and she winds up with a just okay one. With all that said, I do think Demon Slayer is getting a little bit underrated in a meta where 3-cost 3-stars are so powerful, and we see so many of them on different boards, along with Abomination being really popular. There's so much value this Demon Slayer is going to get as the game goes on. Meanwhile, going up against Kermex, who has all of his damage items completed and is able to cop the Radiant Frozen Heart, one of the best, if not the very best, kind of generic, utility-oriented items that you can find. Very, very good pickup from Kermax.
Yep, very nice from Kurum. And yeah, you said it right. Demon Slayer, quite an underrated item in TFT, terribly overrated anime. And I think Becca's in a situation where she has to really roll until she stabilizes at 4-1. And I feel like with Riven comps, specifically in this position, it's definitely feels a little dicey, like to say the least, right? You have these Dawnbringers, again, your units look right, but she's really lacking the real oomph that makes Riven one of the strongest champions to build around. Many people put the Riven reroll in the S tier, but that's assuming you're able to get the right itemization and have Riven 2 much earlier than what Becca has.
Yeah, absolutely. And she also scouted around and saw Sarah Lynn with an early Nidalee 2 with a BT and a bow on it, so it could easily wind up contested. And there are certain compositions in TFT that if you get contested, it's not the end of the world. If you are contested on a 3-cost reroll, it feels so bad. Thinking about pivoting, decides to make the Riven, finds a big Jax pair, so really, really strong rolls for Rebecca so far, but when you're playing a 3-cost carry, if you wind up rerolling for it and getting contested, there are essentially not enough units in the pool for both of you to hit, and Riven 2 falls off a cliff in stage 5, so should be in a good position for now. As we do get a deeper look at Sarah's board, Sarah rolled all the way down, did not find a Riven at all, it doesn't look like. So very, very awkward spot for Sarah, who has 2 Bloodthirsters and I think is functionally committed to playing the same comp as Becca. So these two could easily be holding hands bot 4 from this position. Becca happy to be getting this win. She needs Sarah to take a bunch of damage and get out so she can ultimately find the droids she is looking for.
Well, Sarah looks like she's gearing up for a Phelios pivot based off her bench, and we are approaching the armory. Does have the opportunity to make the Rage Blade, I believe. there was a bow available for her last time I saw, or I'm mistaken. I don't think there is.
Yeah, if she could cop 2 of these items, she could make a Rage Blade. She's only gonna be able to get half of it for now. She could wind up with a double Runin's double BT situation, and you know what? You're not wrong that Aphelios is a comp that she could go from this spot. You put the, items, one of the set of items on the Aphelios 2, you get another one of these sets of items onto, theoretically, hopefully, in the future, an Auction if she can swing it. An Aphelios 2 in Stage 4 is a big deal. She passes Diana. I'm very confused about what direction Sarah wants to go from here, and it seems like Sarah is confused as well. She sits back, she sighs. We've all been there, Dan. Sometimes you get a little dizzy playing this game. It's hard.
Yeah, there was it was just a comedy of errors, and you can see it in Sarah's face that she was not happy with how that went. She passed by a lot of crucial units. If you're going to be playing things like Aphelios, you absolutely want that rail that she passed, and you absolutely want this Nautilus Knight front line to give time for Aphelios. You want to move the items. You want to reposition. A lot of things went wrong here for Sarah, and you can see the pressure is mounting. Can she find a way to recover? Finds Aphelios, finds the Lee Sin. Is she going to actually pivot out of Aphelios after committing the 12 gold and setting up for it?
Oh my god. She sells it and she immediately shook her head. I think that this is one of those spots where you're feeling the pressure. It's almost like she knows she's on camera, Dan, and she's nervous and she's just struggling to figure out where to go. I don't know what's happening on this board, Dan, but it definitely does not feel good.
This is a disaster. I've been there since I started streaming. I'm just like, some games I just want to get out. Like, please, can I just quit and go to game 3? But you can't. You have to play it, and you're also playing for more than yourself. You're playing for your teammates. The good news, this is not a bad loss. If it even is a loss, looks like she might be able to actually get the win. Lee Sin with the cripple takes out 2 of the units, slowing down Jax's attack speed, but thankfully the Blessed Thirster able to get Sarah some breathing room as we get to the Stage 4 carousel. It's been quite a slobber knocker, Bryce. And we'll see whether or not Sarah Lynn can stabilize with her commitment to Jax.
Yes, Team Bronzosaurus has been struggling this event so far. I feel like this game in many ways encapsulates the tournament for this team. So, just playing for pride at this point. Tough for them to come back and wind up in the running for one of the final 4 spots. But that's okay. They can play spoiler. They can score some points. Maybe earn a little bit of cash along the way. So it'll be interesting to see if Sarah can bounce back. Winds up taking armor there. I'm not really sure what direction that's going, but we're gonna hop on board with Milk's board. Milk, who did wind up slamming that bull buff, he instantly hits this Teemo. He passed the Teemo? What is happening, Dan? What are we watching?
That is really surprising to me, to say the least. I think it's because he's just on the Vel'Koz, finds a Volibear, can immediately replace the Gragas. That is interesting, particularly because he has blue buff on Brand and can continue to roll into it. Part of the argument against Teemo, sometimes you don't have the good items for it, and you're much better off using Vel'Koz or Heimerdinger 1-star. But that's a deliberate decision from Milk to pass.
He has good items.
I agree. He has the good items for it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Teemo definitely with mediocre items feels it can have really low impact, but with a blue buff, and he's got a death cap here with 1 rod on Brain, another rod on the bench, plus the Archangel, this Teemo would do so much work in this stage. I am very, very surprised to see Milk passing that up. I would love to be in his head right now. I'd love to ask him why, because Milk is such a thoughtful player, right? So he clearly has a direction that he thinks is correct, but I'm going to say that was a mistake. I really disagree with that decision. Sliding on over onto Solus's board, who has a very, very strong-looking Vel'Koz, finds that Trap Claw. Also has a Redeemed Spat here, by the way, so just so much going on Solus's board.
Yeah, Redeemed Spat is really powerful, particularly when you start finding Fiddlesticks in the composition. Fiddlesticks ties everything very nicely. He's a Mystic. You can put in the Revenant as well with the Invoker having Ivern, and all of a sudden you have a secondary form of magic damage alongside the Vel'Koz, which, by the way, goes back to your point, and I'm inclined to agree. I don't really like that line that Milk took in particular because other people are playing Vel'Koz, and you're putting your eggs in the Vel'Koz basket, with Solus clearly doing things like even grieving. He's holding these extra Vel'Koz, knowing other people want to play it, and that just makes life difficult for everybody else. On top of the players that he just beat, Bri takes a pretty nasty beating down to 15 health. Kurum X shortly behind them at 27 life. Taking tabs on the rest of the lobby, Setsuko's win streak has been snapped. It is a race to the bottom. Outside of Milk and Melton Heart, it doesn't look like any player is going to be cleared for a top 4 finish. But still, lots can happen here at the end of stage 4. The good news for people who are Why People Happy fans is Becca and Milk are both in the top 4, so we'll see how far they can take it.
Yeah, why people happy with a big bounce back performance, even if they AFK in this spot, it's very unlikely that they could repeat a 7th and 8th, so we're at least trending up, Dan. We take those. As we take a look at this lobby, you're right, it's a very, very interesting lobby complexion where you have 2 players that are far ahead of the rest of the lobby in terms of HP, and then everyone else is going to be in a scrap. I expect some big roll downs and transitions to be happening this turn. This is going to be the pivotal turn, Dan. This is when we figure out who is going to be cementing their top 4 spot and who is going to be looking at a bot 4 situation. Solus does choose to make the Karma. Like you said, would prefer to have that item onto a Fiddlesticks, but under the circumstances, you got to take the Karma too. You got to take the power you can. Only 35 HP from Solus so far, and a pretty good spot overall. Meanwhile, we did see a Nocturne 3 get made. Sarah Lynn is committing onto a Skirmisher's board that actually wound up rounding out pretty well. She winds up with the Jax 2. Yep. She winds up getting to level 8. The items on Nidalee are not bad as well, plus the Cavalier spat, but unfortunately, the Syndra is tossing that Jax all over the board, but it's a horse, Dan. It's the horse version of Jax. It is dashing back in there.
That's right. Cavalier Jax, the data does show that it's great. Popular opinion shows that they don't really like it. It's really interesting, the kind of this disparity between opinion and the data. But you can see why that Cav Jax is a force to be reckoned with. Able to just run in and basically close the gap and ensure that Solus's streak will be stopped here and not really getting an opportunity to get started. Got word that Milk passed another Teemo, but he is continuing to be on top of the lobby. 5-2 army has appeared. Full completed items available. Setsuko takes the Shroud. 2 Zeeks, a Locket. The Rascal's Gloves gives 2 Shroud opportunities here for Setsuko. No one's going to be able to cast fast against him. The thing that I can't help but notice is that Setsuko's board, outside of this 3-star Nocturne, doesn't really have the support that really puts it in top 2 candidacy. Nocturne 3 is by all means great, but I've seen Nocturne 2 boards able to get the job done if they have the supporting cast around it. Putting all your eggs in a Nocturne basket makes it feel like if your opponent has the CC, you could be in trouble. Setsuko, by the way, looking at Sarah Lynn's board, maybe giving some advice on how he should be playing from that position. I'm curious about how this matchup is going to go. He ends up queuing into Sarah Lynn.
Yeah, they wind up facing off against each other, and this is a pretty good matchup overall for the Assassins because this Jax normally likes to be able to stand toe-to-toe with units and out-sustain. I think it's going to be very, very challenging into this Nocturne 3. It's a low-damage Nocturne 3, no Infinity Edge, only 4 Assassins on board, does fully stack the Titans, and you know what? Sarah Lynn's going to be able to get it done. The Jax is just able to ramp across that fight, and the Bramble Vest makes it so tough for the other Assassins to cut through. You end up with Renewer, Bramble, Galio alive at the very end, and like you said, Setsuko has the Nocturne 3, but basically everything else is not what you would want to see. Chooses to Nocturne to Nico that Volibear instead of the Diana. Dan, that's interesting. Would you have done that in that spot?
I think so. Volibear 2 is a very significant upgrade, to 3.5 seconds for the stun, which is, I think more than double than the original Volibear one. That's really, really powerful. And I think right now, because his eggs are in the Nocturne 3 basket, you just got to stall for time for Nocturne as best you can. Just kind of a full left hand slant. Not going to shroud Kurum X, which could actually end up swinging the fight if Kurum doesn't end up getting the cast off with the Aphelios, which he does. The full heal. Diana actually somehow puts him in a position farther away from Nocturne. Nocturne chases down, gets the kill. And I think that's probably because what Setsuko read was, I should be favored in this fight, and Kurum could be the player going 8th here. Big damage, and Kurum's down to 1 life. Able to survive, but not by much.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a board read. I mean, he was on the correct side against the right position specifically for that board and got instant access onto Kurum's essentially only damage threat, so could have easily been a board read. It could also just be a situation where he didn't place it because he was facing Sarah Lynn, and now he's forgotten about it almost, right? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if Setsuko gets this Shroud in on the next fight. Trying to figure out what item Setsuko wants in the situation. He needs some kind of generic frontline item potentially. Yeah, the Bramble does feel not bad in this lobby. We've seen a ton of AD holders. Plus, if anything, just denying a Bramble when you're an Assassin player, there's no worse feeling than having your Nocturne 3 get stuck on a Bramble. So I definitely agree with this decision. And we are on the razor's edge that we said we would be on, Dan, except it is even closer. The two people who were comfortably, we said they had top 4s functionally secured over 70 HP heading to the stage, have lost just gobs of HP. No one dead yet. Everyone had the Radiant Blessing on 5-5. This is going to be a crazy finish.
Solus has Lux 3 in his full redeemed composition. Scouting around. Milk still on Vel'Koz 1. Becca positioning for Milk. She's going to Shroud. Trying to see if he can preserve the HP. Milk has swapped. What is happening? This teamwork. And Milk swapped correctly into the right position. They're trying to see if he can take it down. Milk does end up having the Vel'Koz 2, melting the Draven in the back line. Is now Jax with the Demon Slayer trying to see if he can cut through all this health. And Milk looks like ends up taking the loss here as his Garen 2 is able to survive and able to deal a little bit of damage. Why people happy as 2 players still in the top 4, but it's condensing. Kuramax survives. Sarah Lynn takes the loss.
Everyone.
I'm not sure who's going to get top 4 bot for this game.
No one is sure who's going to get top 4 or bot 4. Everyone under 30 HP. Everyone's still alive. We could easily wind up with 3 deaths on this fight, though Bry is the only player win streaking right now, and you can see why. Very scary, kind of all the way upgraded board. Meanwhile, Setsuko still with the Shroud on the bench. This man is going to have a Shroud on the bench when this tournament is over.
That would be hilarious, actually, if he ends up doing that, because I've been waiting to see if he's saving the Shroud for a time such as now. We'll put a pin on that. Bry has the Akshan 2, has a Diana with Cavalier Spat just running to the front line, gonna moonfall this Jax, can't do it, gonna take everybody else. Akshan 2 has yet to sling back with his heroic swing, targeting the Draven in the back.
Oh, Jax is on it.
Is going to try to jump to it, not able to finish off the Yakshan. It's a battle between the carries of who's able to exist. As Rel's trying to stall for as long as possible. Draven without Last Whisper not going to be able to take down, and the Rel stun's going to be enough to deal Becca enough damage to put her into the danger zone.
They're all still alive!
Everyone is still alive. At the end of stage 5, no one has died, and every single player is eligible for a top 4 from this position.
I don't remember the last time I saw this, Dan. You see Becca like readjusting in her chair saying, I thought we were fine. I felt like we were both cruising for a top 4 finish, and now all bets are off. This is only about how strong your board is. Everybody is capable of dying in a single fight going on to stage 6. We could wind up with 4 deaths in a single round. We could also wind up with some close fights. Somebody is likely to die in these next fights, but you never know. Solus, meanwhile, has 20 gold to roll, only needs to find 2 more Vel'Kozes, though with Vel'Koz already out of the pool, it's going to be a tough spot. Finally connects on the Rel upgrade. 1 more Vel'Koz is found. Can he find another Vel'Koz and essentially guarantee a top 4 finish? Going to roll it all the way down, or is he going to wait?
I don't think he can. 17. There's too many Vel'Koz players in the lobby. I think they're just mathematically impossible, but you know, we have to do a little inventory check in order to verify that. He's going to roll, sees nothing else. Hasn't really even repositioned. Just going to move his Zephyr generically. Going up against Bry. This is a tough matchup. Akshan ends up being able to be uncontested. The Zephyr onto the Vel'Koz as well. Unable to really get things online for the first cast. And Solus, by all means, has the ability to go for the top 1 if everything clicks. But he might not even be able to get to the top 4 if he takes a nasty loss here. He cleans up enough units.
Okay.
I think this actually, even if this is a loss, which looks like it is, I think he's alive. Akshan 2 is not going to get checked. It's just Karma versus Akshan, and let me tell you, that's not a fair fight whatsoever.
No, nor is ZZROT versus Akshan. We saw Kuramax going out in 8th place. Solus is going to survive there. Setsuko dead. Only 2 players dead. We need to find a Vel'Koz. He is selling the Karma. He is all in on finding this Vel'Koz. He's already sold his Fiddlesticks as well. He's just going to Nico this Gwen, and he's going to wind up carrying this Gwen instead of the Karma. I do agree with this. Gwen is very, very good with Gunblade. If she can get onto tanks, she absolutely shreds them. She's able to essentially heal back up to full. We've not really seen Solus make good use of this Zephyr yet. Does move the Shroud, but the Zephyr is staying still. And, you know, that Zephyr's kind of in no man's land. Winds up hitting Sarah Rin's Rel, I think. You know, she's on the right side. This Jax and this Nidalee are going to take a long time to get over to the Vel'Koz, but will that be enough?
I mean, it looks good so far. Nidalee jumps to the back line. It's not going to really do much. Gwen is now just single-handedly taking all the tank's attention. Jax is not really able to get ramped up. And that secondary stun from the Rel is huge here for Solus. And this Jax with the cap sped is doing a lot of work. He's hanging in there. The damage reduction is very much kicking in. Bloodthirster finally activating the shield, but with just too much pressure, Sarah Lynn's days are numbered in this lobby. She is going to take... like to be a bottom 4 finish, but honestly, from her spot, 5th is a great result relative to where we saw her in the mid game. I think Sarah Lynn salvaged that situation very well. And 2 members from Why People Happy are alive in the top 4. We're hopping aboard Delicious Milk, who stuck with the Vel'Koz, ends up finding a Spellweaver spatula to be able to place onto that onto the Ivern, not the Fiddlesticks. Very interestingly enough, trying to position around this big Shroud to dodge, but more importantly, just gonna have Volibear try to shut down that other Vel'Koz player. Milk has a Zephyr.
Ooh, he's got the Zephyr cheese. He's got it.
He's got it. Is that enough here to swing that fight? That Gwen is still very fearsome. You can see that everything is lining up timing-wise very nicely. The Vel'Koz is able to line up to the other one, but it looks like his is going to get assassinated just by the sheer damage from the redeemed Vel'Koz on the other side. Looks like Vel'Koz from Solus is just too much to overcome for Milk. Milk should be taking a top 4 finish from this position, and the tie with Bry ends up meaning that he takes 4th instead.
Wow, so close. Bry's Auction 2 not able to get it done. Solus grabs a Trap Claw so big, particularly in these late game fights, particularly when you're playing Vel'Koz unit that you need to be able to get its full cast off. Becca grabs a Shojin. So we haven't gotten to watch this matchup specifically yet. It'll be very, very interesting. Obviously, when you have a Vel'Koz board, it is at a premium that you get onto the right side. Meanwhile, if you are Becca, you are trying to do the opposite of that, right? What my opponent wants, I want to take away. Becca wants to see if she can get this Draven in position to be able to auto-attack and aggro early onto the carry. At the very least, she would like to dodge the laser beam. Same thing with the Jax. She's also got a Shroud she needs to land. And you're seeing Solus just full scout. He's willing to commit his Vel'Koz to the opposite side alone. He does wind up getting the Trap Claws across. Was Beck able to move? She was able to get her Draven onto the right side, but that's it. She misses the Shroud.
I mean, it's kind of anyone's game here. Gwen immediately goes behind the Draven, tries to eliminate the Draven. That's a big source of Becca's damage. And Gwen showing you why she is a legendary that many people are pegging as one of the best champions in the game that you aren't playing right now in your compositions. Solus makes this fight look easy as it comes down to just Jax versus Gwen. It's not a fair fight. Becca ends up barely surviving by 1 HP. She's gonna have to rack her brain to see if she can do anything to stop this Vel'Koz 6 redeem Gwen composition. A full cell of the Vel'Kozes. To see if there's anything that Solus can even improve from this position. I don't think so. We're going to scout once more, see if we can replace anything here and make magic happen.
Going with 3 Ironclad makes a ton of sense into this matchup. All of Becca's damage is physical damage between that Draven and the Jax. Generically repositioning here, not able to get the full scout off. Does move the Shroud over. The Vel'Koz is on the correct side, though. Becca, it's so surprising. Solus telegraphs his swap really early, doesn't swap Becca, and Becca either thought he was going to or was doing something else. This Vel'Koz laser beam is going to go across her entire team, though it does miss the Draven. Draven walks up. Draven is still safe this fight. A little bit better dynamic in this fight. Gwen has not gotten onto the Draven yet. Can this Draven aggro onto the Gwen and kill it before it is too late? A second Vel'Koz laser beam comes out. Draven is still alive, though. Both the Jax and the Draven are doing a lot of work. Syndra tosses over. It is just Jax versus Vel'Koz in this 1v1 of Sustain. The Gunblade versus the BT, and the Jax reigns supreme. Becca gets a much-needed win after an incredibly tough start for Milk and Becca. She gets that lobby win. They are back in the driver's seat. What a finish as we hop on board with Lobby A. What's going on, Dan?
I'm still in shock of what we just witnessed. I can't believe Becca pulled that from the depths of the abyss. What a win for Why People Happy. From one redeem board to another, although I do notice a little bit more emblem action here. There's 2 Spellweaver emblems onto this redeem board here from I'm Jack. Maybe that's just the theme of this round. Yellow units galore. Or will the 80 comp play spoiler once more? Kale has ascended in the bottom left corner. Akshan and Lucian trying to work onto the front line. It seems like this Galio is nigh immortal, just not dying whatsoever, waltzing up to the back line. No problem for Ramblin' to at least get this win. Jack is alive. We do enter stage 7 on game point. Next player to win the fight will take it. Guardian Angel appears onto the Rift Herald for I'm Jack. That's a very big one to keep his front line alive, as that was the weak point. I'm not sure how Jack wasn't able to crack through that Galio too, but that Guardian Angel will certainly help.
Yeah, that Guardian Angel will help. I actually want it on the Kale to guarantee that if the units aggro onto Kale early and Kale winds up dying, that it's able to ramp. Or if it is able to do what it did last fight, where it scales up and then dies, it can come back to life. And Kale is one of those units, most units, if it comes back alive and it's a carry and has no HP left, it's not going to really do much. But Kale, that is fully ascended, will do a lot, especially with a stacked Death Blade. So very, very powerful item for Jack to get. Absolutely can be fight swinging. And, this is a situation where he has just kind of hit everything, right? Clearly went for that Callista Aatrox reroll, wound up hitting it early, weirdly winds up with a couple Spellweaver in. I'm not really sure how that winds up working. Going for a Rel 3, not able to find it, just denying the auctions. Would love to see him look at Ramblin's board and check out the positioning. This Kale needs to live for as long as possible. Vel'Koz is not going to do that much work. Looks like he is going to swap the positioning in order to try to keep the Kale safe. He also moves his Aatrox back one. Let's see if that keeps the Aatrox alive long enough in this fight.
Looks like Rambo didn't have a meaningful upgrade, but does end up having that front line with that Volibear ready to go. Akshan swings to the back. Akela sends the first time. The big Doombringer stalls out the right side, but the Vel'Koz now able to cast. Callista, just by the way, uncontested, dealing crazy amounts of damage from the back line. And now it comes down to the carries. Everybody's online. Here comes the culling from the Lucian. Isn't enough. Kale goes down. And it comes down to with the redeemed units able to try to stop. But look at the healing from Rakan 3. Ramblin takes it for Ramblin Robin. And what a finish once more. The favorites, the Goliaths, end up on top. Can anybody stop Ramblin Robin? It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Ramblin takes the W. Wow. Yeah,
Ramblin' Robin is a freight train. I would love, you called it out, I'd love to see the healing on that Rakan 3 with the blue buff. It felt like, those fights actually felt like they were going well for Jack, and then just the healing on the Rakan, so much frontline value, right, into a composition that was doing all physical damage, right? KO eventually is ascending and dealing with it, but it felt like Ramblin's entire frontline was alive, despite the fact that you've got a KO and a Callista 3 fully itemized just wailing away. So a clean win for Ramblin, back-to-back top 4s. Ramblin Robin is a juggernaut, and I am still reeling from that insane final fight between Becca and Solus. It was so close, both the carries of the sustain items, and I did not know who was going to win it until the final Jack's auto attack.
Such a big win on many accounts of what happened in round number 2 here. We're going to once more recap Wide People's Happy's ability to get that win, $200 so far on pool play, but more importantly, with a double top 4 finish, puts them back in the driver's seat. They were the team to focus on heading into today from this group of teams. They were the points leader at 96, but maybe that is going to change after the first 2 games. Ramblin Robin also putting on a pretty performance of 14 points. So great job there. Jirachi was the 3rd, and HJW with the top 4 there. And of course, shout out to Bry with another good performance, first in the game number 1, and also a top 3 in game number 2. And Ramblin Robin right now already their top 4 in terms of points, which puts them very, very, very likely to make it to the finals. I think with that win from Ramblin, it almost all but certainly guarantees them to be in the top 4 for today, and ultimately going to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to go 7th, 8th the next 2 games and score 6 points for both of them, they would wind up with 128, which is enough as of right now. Obviously, there's a bunch of teams that are still playing right now that could theoretically wind up passing them, but given how strong they have looked today, I think it's safe to say the smart money is on Ramblin' Robin advancing, which, really isn't anything new. I think the smart money's been on Ramblin' Robin advancing from basically the moment this tournament was announced.
Yeah, I think a lot of people peg them as the favorites team, but there's also some other teams that are really giving them a run for the money. Got to give a shout out, of course, to Bertosaurus and team. We are going 8th at 110. They're very quiet there at 11th place right now, but at 110, only 5 points behind Why People Happy, and ultimately still in contention of that top 4. A lot can change. Aegon.gg with Spencer Aegon, they're not going to be making it no matter what. They played yesterday. Same with Neanderthals and the Cuties. A lot more TFT is yet to be played, but there's only 2 more games left as well, so the pressure is certainly ramping up here, Bryce.
Yeah, it's absolutely ramping up. We talked about how close it was coming into the day, and the marker is very clearly like around the 130-point threshold. So it'll be interesting to see if we wind up bumping off Team 8875 and we have 3 teams advancing, or is this just all about which of the final teams from today is going to be able to catch up? And even though, the Megafurts, for example, have struggled today and they're on the outside looking in with 2 full games left, and in a duos format where you can score 18 points for a first, that's 36 total points for the next 2 games. So they're far from out of this thing. Obviously need a really strong finish, but that's part of the fun of the duos format, Dan, is just the swings are wild.
Swings are wild indeed, and we're going to find out what happens in the second half of the day, but that does bring us to our halftime break. We're going to take a few minutes, and we'll set you down with this tutorial about how to use the Ball Street Fantasy TFT app. And then in the second, we're going to get back with game number 3 here, the Giant Slayer series. Stay tuned.
Fantasy TFT is a free-to-play stock market game where you compete against other TFT esports fans in real time to earn prizes during the live broadcast. Click on the Open tab to see which contests are going on. After joining a contest, you'll start off with shares of each TFT competitor, as well as additional cash to buy competitors with. From there, you'll see a list of TFT competitors and a graph indicating their current prices. Now, this is where your knowledge of TFT comes in. During the matches, pay attention to each player because you can change your mind at any time. The price of each competitor will change based on their performance. Like how someone is playing, buy their shares. Think someone made a mistake, sell them before their stock goes down. Buy low and sell high to maximize your score, and if you can outtrade everyone in the market, you'll walk away with a prize.
Welcome back, everybody, to Giant Slayer Series, the final day of pool play. After today, these next two lobbies, we're going to find out who the top 4 teams are advancing to the finals for all the bragging rights and their portion of $10,000 US. The end of game number 2 was quite a spectacle. If you missed it, I just sorry to say, you missed out. It was a really, really fun treat for all TFT fans. It came down to the wire, some really unusual compositions, and a lot of really 6 redeem compositions make into the final bit. So really interesting stuff happening, Bryce, which goes to show you that ultimately, as much as there were some highs and lows about this patch, there was a lot that 11.16 had to offer.
Oh, I love this patch, and I think that it's a situation where, yes, the 3 costs 3 stars were probably a little bit overtuned, but we have not seen them dominate today at all. When you get lobbies where you have the players at this high of a skill level, they're just able to put so much more pressure throughout the lobby that it's hard to, kind of sit on a 1-star 3 cost through all of stage 3 and then 2 stars for all of stage 4 into stage 5, right? So unless you're really high rolling those compositions, they're just harder to get online. And meanwhile, you have comps that are, I think, underplayed right now and thought of as not being, at the top tier in 6 redeemed and a Draven kind of Jax hybrid Knight composition that wound up working out really, really well. So it was cool to see Solus and Becca adapting to what the game give them, making it work and getting top 2 in one of the closest lobbies that I've seen in any tournament, period.
It came down to just the last ticks of health on both the Little Legends and the champions fighting on the board themselves. So we're very excited to see what's going to happen for game number 3. Hope you all had a good opportunity to get yourself familiar with fantasytft.com if you haven't already with the Ball Straight app, as we will open up the markets once more for game 3 to find out who is going to take first place. But as we mentioned, it is really all about the top 4. Next week, we're going to have the top 4 teams play 6 games. But for now, we're down to the last 2 for today. And right now, 2 teams are well positioned from today's lobby so far. It's Ramblin' Robin at 122. They're right now in 4th place as it is. So if all things just hold serve and they're just able to put on some mediocre performances, they should be in. Team Y people happy with Delicious Milk and Becca, who historically, apparently, there's been some kind of a curse associated with me. Whenever I cast Becca and Milk, they seem to do poorly. But that game, it was really all about them and Becca able to clutch it. So perhaps the curse is reversing onto itself. I won't expect any Discord flame from Milk after the cast. I hope not, at least.
That's still very much on the table, Dan. I don't know why we're giving up on that.
I wouldn't want it any other way. It's TFT after all. Let's go ahead and hop on board the Ramblin's POV from Lobby A here in game number 3. Going to start off with Bo. I feel like right now in the opening carousel, you can just fight almost any component except for the one left into center. I think most people will agree that needlessly large rod is, it says it right there in the title. It's needless. You don't really need it whatsoever for a lot of this composition.
Yeah, that needlessly large rod is sometimes needed, but in this situation, if you wind up with the offensive carousel where you get 3 bows, 3 swords, and 3 rods, people treat the rods like the plague. They're like running to whatever side just does not have rods near it and just praying they get sword or bows. But yeah, I agree. I think the meta is in a really balanced state. There's a ton of different directions you can go. Item balance feels really good overall as well. And rod is weak, but I've won games picking up rod off the first carousel. You need to get other item components that kind of help you get into the AP tree, or maybe you wind up with that being your only rod. Ginsu's Rageblade, certainly one of the strongest versatile items in the game right now. So rod's not terrible, though definitely I would say a little bit weaker than the other items. And you're watching, we're on board with Ramblin', who is already scouting, up a storm. This is a player that, I'm just going to say, we are all missing out for not having Ramblin' play at regionals. He has been by far the best performer in this tournament overall to date. His average points per day has been wild. He has 7.2 points earned per game. He is averaging better than a 3rd place stand. This guy has game.
Yeah, I think many people peg Ramblin' as the best player to not make it to regionals. Now, to be a little bit fair, Ramblin' did join us a little bit later, as his stream. He is a player that is capable of playing multiple games at a high level, as he does come from the Destiny community. That's kind of where we first discovered him. But that being said, he came so close in many tournaments. It was quite a heartbreak, at least on my end, to see Ramblin not make it. But, I think that also kind of feeds a little bit into his brand. Ramblin's also sort of like, developing into a people's champion because he just narrowly misses out every single time. So I'm sure when he finally qualifies, assuming he wants to stick with it, it's gonna be a glorious day in the North American TFT scene. Gonna start off with the Sentinel package. Thinking about if he wants to slam any items, but all of them are kind of situational / borderline unplayable. The only thing you can probably justify is Shojin, but based off his early composition with Sentinel Legionnaire, I don't think it's a wise choice. So he's gonna hold at the risk of just losing to this 4 Knights composition. Who's more tankier, the 3 Sentinels or the 4 Knights here, Bryce?
Yeah, the Knights are tankier for sure, but they don't do any damage. A little bit unlucky in terms of how this fight complexion has played out, because what Ramblin really needed was for Olaf to kind of get to half health early so it could start really rolling, but just never able to do that. At 100 HP, Olaf is just not going to do that much work with no items at the beginning of the game. So, a fight he expects to lose. It's kind of a funny going up against 4 Knights early, not a board you'd expect to win, but getting the job done. We're hopping on board with Buzzy Boo. This is the first time we've gotten to take a look at Buzzy Boo, a player that performed very, very well in week 1. Very not well, I think it's safe to say, in week 2. And unfortunately, Buzzy is picking up where he left off last week with a 7th and an 8th place. Not a bad opening, though. Kind of a generically very strong components. You're not unhappy about any of them. Chooses to take the tier here, which is very interesting. Not a lot of players, I think, would do that. I see more people favoring the AD tree, but with the Redeemed opening, he says, you know what? I already have Leona 2. I saw Redeemed do very well in previous lobbies, so I'm just going to lean in, grab this tier, and play some Vel'Koz.
Yeah, and it could be something that just correlates to what Jirachi's doing, Buzzy's teammate. It's one of these things where if Jirachi says, hey, look, I feel very comfortable on the AD tree. Please don't slam Infinity Edge or Hodge or anything else and try to start playing Lucian / Jax compositions. That could be just Jirachi's territory. And then Buzzy says, okay, that's fine. I'll totally play the other lane. I think AP and AD are the 2 general trees that you go in this game, with some exceptions of specific reroll comps that focus on true damage. And I think that Buzzy is trying to be very flexible and also has shown a lot of proficiency on the AP tree in particular. So I think this is okay. And you know what? You lost the first 2 fights. Put it on a lose streak. Try to minimize amount of damage, 92 health. If you can lose streak perfectly throughout stage 2 and kill a couple units every single time, you're in a great spot for the AP tree.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. You then get prioritization on the carousel, which is so big because the itemization of AP tree is a little bit more narrow than on some of the other AD trees where you can get a little bit more flexible in your items. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. Win streaking and lose streaking, both very viable. Buzzy's partner, Jirachi, one of the better lose streaking players, though it does not appear that is happening this game. Buzzy says, hey, if I can kill units along the way and wind up at Krugs with 30 gold, making 40 on Krugs, and something like 80, 82, 84 HP, it's really not a bad situation. And this looks like another really good fight for Buzzy, because he's very likely to lose here, but if he can get 1 or 2 more unit kills, it's exactly what the doctor ordered. In fact, with these 2 tanks crowding around, it's just the absolute perfection. This is a clinic in loss streaking from Buzzy Boo.
Yeah, really, really well done. In fact, no one is really free-falling in the HP. HJW and Robin Song's only a couple of units behind in terms of kills. And I think part of the reason why, to just follow up on the point that we're talking about, the reason why it's strong for the AP tree is that they can stabilize from a loose streak position. And they do really depend on having a very powerful set of items, because when they go for big bursts, you really want to amplify the exponential part of what makes those comps really powerful. For example, Vel'Koz, having suboptimal items on Vel'Koz feels a lot worse than having suboptimal items on another AD carry, because you can always flex that AD carry. But you can't really choose a different AP carry than Vel'Koz early on, because the replacement for Vel'Koz are units that are rarer and even more specific to build around.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One of the kind of knocks on the AP tree right now is that you're just a little bit narrow. You have Ziggs and Brand as okay AP holders. You have Misfortune who's in a pretty weak spot right now, for being honest, especially relative to the power of other 3 costs in the game. Misfortune, one of, if not the weakest 3 costs. And then it's, Vel'Koz, but with Karma out, and then obviously you've got Heimerdinger and Teemo, so you have this great late game fantasy, but sometimes it's a tough road to get there, and so you really have to make sure you're securing type of position that can hit you that Vel'Koz and put you in that great spot. So really like what Buzzy is doing so far. Jirachi, meanwhile, is in a somewhat unusual spot. I guess, already leveled to 5, has lost 3 rounds in a row, so Jirachi won their first fight, but has lost every fight since then, so not a bad situation for Jirachi. Looking over at Buzzy Boo, taking a close 2-unit loss, so kind of, this is going, I think, the way that this team wants to play, Dan. Not every team wants to kind of be at the bottom of the leaderboard, in the middle of the leaderboard, but for Jirachi and Buzzy, I think this is the game plan.
Well, Jirachi has a Hecarim too, which makes me wonder if Jirachi is entertaining ponies again. Jirachi's claim to fame in set 5 or it's just in general for this set has been the Misfortune Cav reroll, where Jirachi was able to make a very deep run and has since, maintained good results, unlike a lot of other Cav reroll players on the ladder. And it's one of the comps that I think Jirachi understands a lot deeper than others. So I'm curious if that's going to be the case. Could also just play straight up AD, and we'll see. But either way, I do find their position particularly curious from my end. Takes a pretty nasty loss to Ramblin', though. Jirachi did a great job threading the needle, but in the end, joins teammate Buzzy Boo at the bottom of the ranks.
Yeah, 76 HP, not the end of the world.
Oh!
Whoa! So this shop, this is one of those things where we want to see a new game mode, Dan, because if Jirachi can give Buzzy this shop, everything is coming up aces, right? So Jirachi buys the Vel'Koz and instantly sells it. It's clear his teammate is going that, it's clear their teammate is going that, and Jirachi does not want to contest. I think that Jirachi is looking very seriously at this MF reroll position, right? Because we know that they're going to have to roll a meaningful amount of gold on 3-2. Which means that they are likely wanting to play around a 2 or a 3 cost carry. And from this spot, I'm struggling to see what the outs are aside from Misfortune. Fighting Sword, pretty good, right? That Shojin does so much work on Misfortune. A Cloak is a generically very powerful tank item, right? Like a lot of the best in slot versions of Hecarim involve a Dragon's Claw and a Bramble Vest. So things are coming up pretty well from Jirachi. Still needs to hit on the roll down here on 3-2, but a good opportunity for Jirachi to stabilize the board and start that comeback.
Yeah, very interesting development indeed. Speaking of, Ramkev with an early spatula choosing to cavalier his Olaf. Has the Ionic Spark, kind of leaning towards a couple of different potential trees. I thought it leaned a little bit more towards AP just from the Ionic Spark because you want to get that magic resistance going, but also as Yasuo could feasibly just play Yasuo reroll from this spot as well. And from Ramkev's perspective, not slamming things like Deathcap or the Morellonomicon because his board is just quite frankly very, very strong at this point in the game. A lot of people don't really have the Yasuo 2. But I think it's largely due to the fact that Ramkev, you notice, he rolled all the way down at 3-1, which you love to see. I think a lot of players, they try to protect their win streak. They level to 6 on 3-1, and then they don't do anything. They level 3-1 and say, that should be good enough. I put in another unit that should win, right, Mortdog? That is so wrong. Make sure that you're strong so you can keep your board and your streak together. Ramkev, showing all the noobs how it's done.
I feel personally attacked right now, but also I agree with you. Yeah, Ramkev is a person that will consistently put himself in new and interesting spots, never afraid to take a different line in a game and see where it goes. I'm not sure where he's going, and I'm also not sure he knows where he's going, which is part of the fun. Hopping on board with Jack, who has a very interesting Ziggs. It is a Ziggs or an Aphelios cosplaying as a Ziggs, I guess. The Deathblade on Ziggs plus the Ginsu's Rageblade. So this unit is going to be slowly but surely stacking up its attack speed to throw more bombs and also to do a hefty amount of attack damage along the way, going up against Bert, who has an Aphelios cosplaying as an Aphelios, and it is not good enough. The 4K damage from the Ziggs, and he says, why play Aphelios with Aphelios items when you could play Ziggs with Aphelios items?
Yeah, that's right. Ziggs is a good item holder. It's actually funny because Ziggs historically has been a 1 cost that has pretty much been this design, using his little cannonballs. and has always been one of the higher attack speed champions, which is a little bit unusual for an AP carry, but also works in his benefit with his low mana cost to get his ult. I guess it turns out that it's not a bad item holder for just AD items too. So the logic, I guess, checks out there. Very unusual and kind of a cool spot here from Jack.
Yeah, it's a very fun line from Jack, and it's part of what we're starting to see, I think, as the meta has evolved, right? So many people were leaning so heavily towards the Sentinel Skirmisher opening that it became really hard on some level to stabilize with that opening. Obviously, if you high roll with it, it's great, but with everyone holding basically every Sentinel and Skirmisher unit in the beginning of the game, it became very tough to upgrade them, and so I think there's a lot more experimentation going on right now. You've got Jack playing a 4-Knight, 2-Spellweaver board with Ziggs holding AD items, and it's absolutely holding its own, right? Like, he's in the middle of stage 3. Just played Jirachi, who rolled a meaningful amount of their gold down in order to try to stabilize, and Jack is able to cut through that Hecarim 2 with the Bramble Vest and able to take another win. So, cool innovation from Jack, and just goes to show you that when it comes to TFT, the conventional wisdom is often not that wise, and you have to be willing to try new things, and yes, potentially make some mistakes in order to figure out for yourself what is strong. I don't know if this is the first time Jack has played this line or if he's had this experiment done before, but either way, very cool innovation to see from Jack, and it's working out.
Totally. He's in a great position to play Fields. Love the 4-Knight Hellion opening. We'll see how far he can go. Speaking of 4 Knights, Robin has a very good setup for actually a couple of different compositions, and I love the fact that he's holding on to these Nocturnes. Robin's not known to be a reroll player right now, but guess what? His claim to fame back in set 3 Galaxies for Teamfight Tactics was a reroll composition. Robin was a notorious mech pilot reroller alongside another player you may have heard. His name is Kiyun, I think?
Yeah,
a player that was, it was Robin Songs and Kiyun regularly trading top 1 in North America, being a mech pilot one-trick. And so when it comes to rerolls, this man knows his stuff about how to beat people. And it's interesting that he's keeping that door open on top of course, having the window to play Jax with his itemization right now. So I'm liking the direction that Robin has. I love the spat. That adds another element to why he considers Assassins good, because Assassins really starts to do well when you can make Fiddlesticks into Assassin and get that big crit damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the primary win conditions for Assassins, which obviously you can win in other ways, but one of the best paths to victory for Assassins is that Assassin Spatula. You cannot get 6 Assassins online without Assassin Spat, because there are only 5 Assassins in the game right now, and that is such a big spike to go from 4 to 6 Assassins, to say nothing of the fact that Assassins are low one-dimensional. The only damage-dealing Assassin is Nocturne, and it's all AD. So you run into these heavy ironclad lobbies, and you run to a Bramble Vest. It's just very tough to deal with that. But if you get a Fiddlesticks going, right, all of a sudden you're adding ability power damage to the composition. It makes you far more versatile. It's AoE to kind of contrast with Nocturne's often single target damage if he's not surrounded by units. So I really like how Robin is approaching this, saying, hey, I wouldn't normally consider Assassins, but in this spot, I'm probably going to have to roll on level 7 because there's no way Kalista is going to carry me through stage 4, and so I might as well be open to that. He did sell Nocturne, so I think it's become less likely, but still, he could easily come back for that unit.
Yeah, I think it was completely dependent on his Radiant item choice, which I think makes sense. He said, like, if I got a really good item for Nocturne, I can go for it. Did not find anything like a light cannon or anything that really just screams Assassins. For example, Radiant Zeeks is also another thing that you could certainly take in that spot. And I respect that. You know, Robin said, hey, I opened myself up, but part of playing Flex also understands when to close certain paths. You know, Flex is not always about trying to play every single composition you possibly can. It's about making the right decisions and pivoting when the time calls for it. And I think Robin showed you exactly how he chooses to go about it, which I actually think I learned something just there.
Yeah, that's a great call on. That's exactly how he approached it. And, you know, the Radiant item has created such an interesting moment in the game, right? In almost the dead center of the game on stage 3-6. I think it's so cleverly placed there because sometimes it is, okay, this is gonna be a big boost and it's gonna change whether or not I'm rolling on stage 4. Other times it's gonna clearly define direction for the comp. I agree. I think he probably was open to Assassins and then becomes not. That Spatula is so big. No cloak yet, so cannot make the Redeem Spat, but At 30 HP, Buzzy is going to have carousel priority basically until the end of the game unless he starts Omega win streaking. So the chance he's able to secure that cloak, very, very high. Has a Vel'Koz 1, 6 redeemed online, and choosing to not roll more gold. There are a lot of players that would full send it there, Dan. I'm not sure if I agree with it, but I do appreciate the greed.
Yeah, we'll have to see. You know, it's all contextualized. Maybe Buzzy has a weak pool. Maybe he's talking about some game plan. Maybe Jirachi was saying, hey, don't roll, I got you. I know what you should be doing from this position. We're going to hop on board with Bertosaurus, a player who's been absolutely crushing. Does have the early Lucian on board, which is so interesting because early in this patch for 11.16, everyone was lamenting about the weakness of Lucian, and now all of a sudden, it feels like Sentinels are kind of back onto the menu. We're seeing lots of players find success. Yesterday, Raditz was playing Sentinels almost exclusively and putting on pretty consistent performances for Soulcat for Econ, and as a result, him and Broccoli put themselves in a very strong position for top 4 for next week. So I think it just goes to show you that, you know, as much as what you were saying before, Bryce, I want to echo that sentiment, is that there's a lot of, you know, rules and things in place that help you play TFT really well, but sometimes those things can turn on themselves. The meta chooses to lean too far into one direction. All of a sudden, Lucian is a very reliable carry. And quite frankly, I'm not entirely sure myself what changed to make that happen. I know that Lucian was very much capable of being a solid 1-star carry, but it just seems like in the past few days in particular, he's really risen to prominence.
Yeah, he absolutely has. And look, the reality is TFT is so interconnected, right? We could sit here and probably have a half an hour discussion about why Lucian is back and what's happening. I think, you know, part of what's going on is that people are trying to play more aggressively in Stage 4, and 6 Sentinel Lucian is one of the best comps for stabilizing in that situation. It's very similar to, like, 6 redeemed Vel'Koz, whereas it is, you know, Aphelios caps out higher than Lucian for sure, right? If you get to set your dream level 9 board and you're building around an 80, you know, 4-cost carry, you're going to take Aphelios over Lucian every time, but that's not this situation, right? The situation is what's going to make a player strongest in this part of the game and then potentially snowballing that into a victory. Lucian does very well in that regard. Akshan, obviously very popular, and here we go. Bertosaurus was open to both Aphelios and Lucian, but now that he's got the 6 Sentinel online, he says, I think I'm comfortable committing full into Lucian from this spot. And that's just a very interesting change to how this exact spot would have been played, you know, even 3 or 4 days ago. Just goes to show you we're constantly evolving in our approach to TFT, even if the meta has, even, you know, the meta is changing, even if the game hasn't changed. Meanwhile, we're moving over to Ramblin, who is playing that Dawnbringer reroll. He's at 0 gold level 7. Definitely not a good spot for Ramblin. Just trying to secure top 4, right? Only 3 copies of the major units in Nidalee and Riven. It looks like he has 6 copies of Rakan, which can be a very big kind of secondary carry, a utility carry in this composition to keep the damage dealers alive, going up against Jirachi, who has also rolled it all the way down and has this Hecarim 3. This is a Hecarim versus the world situation, and I think ultimately the world is probably going to win. Jirachi takes a big hit. I am blown away by how aggressive this lobby is, Dan. It feels like no one has gold left. Whether you're at the bottom of the lobby or the top from an HP perspective, you're spending it.
Yeah, the only exception, of course, was Buzzy Boo that you called out, who chose not to roll. It does feel like everyone else has. Interesting that Jirachi did end up committing to the Misfortune reroll. I was just kind of throwing it out there to show as a possibility, and they end up going for it, and they don't really have much going on besides that. With the lack of Misfortune 3, and not even having multiple 3-stars, I think Jirachi is likely to go bot 4 in this game. We're on Ramblin's POV, and I will say a very subtle thing that helped Ramblin get that win was the Kha'Zix jumping to the back line. He uses opportunity to advocate for my boy Kha'Zix, who is, I think, an underappreciated Dawnbringer. Many people choose to play Gragas in the Riven reroll, but Kha'Zix is still very nice if you can capitalize on isolated positioning, which ended up being the swinging factor, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to answer that Misfortune who had the Radiant Archangels. Yeah,
that's a great shout. There are definitely boards where Gragas is stronger, no doubt about that, but it's never always this, right? In this situation, this Kha'Zix is going to have a lot of trouble finding isolation damage, so probably isn't going to be as good as the effective HP. Meanwhile, Jack has that Aphelios 2 online and slowly ramping up. The Lulu is polymorphing the Riven. Riven's Dawnbringer has already popped, and Volibear came back to just dunk on it. It is going to be a Rakan against a bunch of units, and that Rakan is not going to last, man. Viego is a fun unit, Dan. Viego is just out here stealing everything, and there's no worse feeling than having your carry stolen by a Viego and losing the fight essentially before it's even begun.
That Viego turned 3 units in that fight. Blue buff Viego is quite a force, especially on stage 4. We're hopping on board with Jirachi. Does have the 3-star Thresh online, but not even a 4th misfortune. This has a 7th place written all over it. I think that Jirachi can stabilize a little bit here if they get really good items. But here's another thing: they don't even have 3 items for misfortune because they don't seem to have all the components lined up for it. And now going up what looks like to be Buzzyboo's board, who is streaking despite not rolling. Great recognition from Buzzyboo. Also seems to have hit the Vel'Koz 2 pretty easily with a bunch of gold left here at level 8. It could be one of these scenarios where Buzzyboo might end up just being able to win the lobby and compensate for the Mega Furrets. But Jirachi is not able to take down this Vel'Koz. Oh, well, maybe the Bramble Vest actually stopping the crits. Ooh. Could end up doing a little bit. Does not. And Jirachi takes a minimal loss down to 16. Taking some inventory at the end of stage 4. More than half the lobby has claimed the Radiant Blessing, which looks like to be component plus gold. Not too much reroll action going on. But outside of Jirachi, I feel like top 4 is pretty open, given that we haven't really seen what HJW is, and I never count Ramblin' out of games.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. It's another close lobby. No one seems to be running away with it. We have not gotten to look at Ramskev Sports since he was in that wild kind of early Spark Cavalier spat. I don't know if this man's playing Yasuo or could be really playing anything from this situation. Jack, very unfortunate, would have loved to have found a cloak here. Really, really wanted to have a healing item on Aphelios. Healing on Aphelios is such a big deal because as its attack speed ramps up over the course of the fight, it can essentially sustain indefinitely. And Aphelios, if it does not get crowd controlled, can wind up in winning fights, against 4 or 5 plus units. So not what he was hoping for there. It would be interesting to see if he chooses to complete just another Deathblade and just goes insane glass cannon. Maybe could do a Guardian Angel if he wanted to go that route. A couple different options for Jack, so it will be the full glass cannon, Frozen Heart and Viego. We have a dual carry situation between Aphelios and Viego. Luckily for Jack, he's going up against Jirachi's board. Jirachi's board's pretty weak, but with that, Viego not getting access to the back line, his MF will last longer in this fight. Can Jirachi finally get a win?
Looks pretty close here. Looks like the Felix is not going down very easily. The second Dark Vigil not able to get it done. Misfortune gets one more cast potentially. Does not. Jirachi not able to get a win. And that was a pretty big deal. I feel like if Jirachi was to fight for 7th, that was the key. Ramblin' also takes another loss here. So some real big movement happening in this lobby. We're hopping on board with Ramkev, who is on the Yasuo reroll, kind of what we thought in the beginning. Finds this 8th Yasuo, very close to piecing it all together. Finds some couple 2-stars, but still missing the big gold.
He has 7 Lee Sins, 8 Yasuos. He's holding this Viego. He really doesn't want to sell Viego because they want that to be his next unit, and that's a unit that's hard to come by. He needs to find this Yasuo 3. He's going up against Ramblin', who's in the exact same situation. Dan, Ramblin' has 7 Rivens, 8 Rakan, so this is the 3-star 2 cost, or the 2-star 3 cost battle for the ages. Ramblin' is likely going down here. This Rakan just does not have any damage to deal with this Yasuo or the gang left over from Ramkev. So Ramkev and Ramblin' both struggling to hit, but in 2 very different situations. Ramkev has enough HP to theoretically be able to get that done. Ramblin' does not, though he does avoid an 8th. Jirachi claims that for themselves.
Such a peculiar game. Many people are rolling for 3 costs. Ramblin' hits Rakan 3, but Jirachi was rolling for Misfortune. Ramkev's rolling for Yasuo, and none of them hit. That's so unusual. Because part of what the nature of shared draft pools in the genre like auto battlers is that when one person hits, it makes the second player likely to hit, which makes the third player extremely likely to hit. And so it's just like one of these things where can one of you just hit so that the others can? That's kind of what's going on through Ramkev's mind right now. But I will say that if there's a 2-star that can really do it, Yasuo is actually surprisingly still very useful, especially when you have a support cast like this around him. The Viego 2 comes to the back, Lee Sin gets raised up, Nightbringer Shield trying to stall for as long as it can, he ends up dropping it. So enough for Ramkev to potentially take less damage here. Goes down. His Radiant Blessing has been activated. Potentially can find a good component to piece with that Negatron Cloak. Taking tabs on Ramblin to see that if he's going to take 7th, and it looks like that's going to be the case. Ramblin just never got online. Has a Recon 3, but that's not the 3-star he's looking for, which means that more 3 costs are entering the pool. Something that actually Ramkev is not happy about.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Ramkev. Wanted to find his Yasuo when all of those 3 costs, right? So many copies of Nidalee, Riven, and Rakan just went back in the pool that Ramkev's opportunity to find his last Yasuo became exponentially harder. Still doable, though, and is going to get this Radiant Blessing, which is a big deal. Jack grabs the Nightbringer spat.
Wait, what?
That's actually, that's
That's
really,
his teammate!
That's his teammate, Dan! What?
Don't you want Ramkev to have the Nightbringer spat, Jack? What?
I
I don't understand.
Jack wants it too, I guess. He can go up to 4
Wait,
Nightbringer in this
what?
situation.
Guys,
that is team anti-synergy if I have ever seen it. Ramkev gets a little bit extra gold, which he desperately needs because he has rolling to do. Can we find the last Yasuo? Okay, we found the last Lee Sin. That is good, and with the Cavalier spat, it helps, but he winds up selling the Viego. He's a long way from getting to level 8, Dan. He just needs to find this Yasuo, and this is is rapidly approaching what many would refer to as a BG situation, though the items he got from the Blessing are pretty good. Now he has Jax as a secondary carry. This Jax, if it's given time to ramp up, will do a lot of work. Going up against HJW's board, first time we've had a look at that. He is carrying the Teemo, and the Viego is on to the Yasuo already. Can it steal it?
It looks very likely to be the case. Yasuo turns, the Sovereign Domination, able to do what Viego does best, which is tilting every TFT player that he goes up against. Ramkev loses half his life, and that Volibear 2 is looking quite fearsome. Jack takes a pretty big loss, but Bertosaurus is right behind him. If Ramkev and Jack can still salvage this top 4 together, what a victory that would be. We're hopping back on board with Robin Songs, who seems to be decided to commit to the Draven. Draven Jack's quite interchangeable. Love the fact that he splashed in the Cavaliers and the Forgotten with his Ironclad spat. Just very, very solid against other AD compositions. The only challenge is that it does seem like the AP players are the ones that Robin will be facing off against in the top 3 based on the current pace.
Yeah, and it's cool to see another Draven player do well in this lobby, a unit that a lot of people were saying is relatively weak, one of the quote-unquote weaker forecasts, but Draven yet again getting it done, Robin topping the lobby, going up against Ramkev, who still has this Yasuo 2. Ramkev, he's doing a lot of smart things, Dan. He needs to try hitting under the set of circumstances. I feel like hitting would probably improve his board dramatically. I did say the Jackson's secondary carry was going to be a thing, though, and look at this. The AD from the Skirmisher ramping up over the course of the fight. The Draven is now aggroed onto the Cavalier Lee Sin, and the Jax able to get it done. It is really nice when you get into those situations, particularly when you're struggling to find your 3 costs, to find an alternative damage source. Yasuo goes down, but Jax does not. That's a nice fight win for Ramkev and puts him into a much better place to theoretically squeak into the top 4 as his partner Jack goes down. Bertosaurus at 3 HP. Only 5 players remaining. Last game, Dan, we had everybody alive. Only 5 people still alive. Not bad as we head into stage 6.
Bertosaurus hanging on by a thread. Do you want to call out that Robin Songs is clearly chasing for a Draven 3? If he can find Viego, his board will improve dramatically, as he does not need this Cannoneer Misfortune in the back, which incidentally also grieved Jirachi. Is he going to roll or is he going to go to 9? This is an eternal question that I struggle with myself in these kinds of positions. He's going to roll it down. Is he going to roll it down to 0? It's another question. He finds the 6th Draven. Still no Viego on the hunt for potentially upgrade his board. Finds another Jax, can go for Ironclad. Chooses to skip, recognizing that there's more important fish to fry here. Finds a rel 2. That's a nice stopping place, but that was his only upgrade across 50 gold roll down, or basically, using up all of his gold here. Going up against Buzzy Boo's board, who's out for revenge now that Jirachi's taking that 8th place. But more importantly, what's happening in the other parts of the lobby. Robin is all but safe in the top 4 at the moment, and his board is not weak, even if he does end up losing. I don't think he should be losing dramatically, although, as I say that, I did mention that his comp can be weak to AP lobbies in particular. This looks like he's going to clean up most of this right now. Bertosaurus is out in 5th, And so we do have our top 4, and BuzzyBoo does take another loss, and Draven actually ends up winning versus the AP comp. Yeah. And I think that's thanks to the itemization choices of Robin songs to have this Dragon Claw and Galio with the Stoneplate Gargoyle. Bryce, I told you this in our practice games. Stoneplate Gargoyle is not really useful in a lot of champions, but there's one champion that can use it exceptionally, and that's Galio.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Draven may be weak into AP generically, but it's not weak into Vel'Koz, because the way in which Vel'Koz works is that its ulti is a series of ticks of damage, and the Knight is blocking 40 flat with 4 Knights on each tick of that damage. When you combine that with the Dragon's Claw on the Galio, the Vel'Koz on the wrong side, it was just ulting the tanks over and over and over again, Draven staying safe, good positioning from Robin, or I guess more like bad positioning from Buzzy, because Robin didn't have a chance to move because he was so busy rolling down. Now we're seeing a repeat performance, but with the Vel'Koz on the correct side. I have a feeling this fight is going to go a little differently, Dan.
I mean, we'll see. That is a Fiddlesticks 1, though, despite having some pretty decent items. Part of the backline has melted. It's Draven and Galio versus the world, and this time, the right positioning will do it. I mean, I don't care how many Knights you have. If this is the way the positioning is, your comp is going to get blown up. Robin takes big damage now in the teens. HJW takes a loss to Ramkev. Every player is capable of winning or taking a 4th in this position.
Yeah, and Buzzy is 1 off of Vel'Koz 3. It'll be very interesting to see if Buzzy can survive to carousel, because any single Vel'Koz on that carousel has the potential to swing. We see Ramkev finally hit the Yasuo 3. We have so many lobbies that are so close. Buzzy opting to sell the sell the Fiddlesticks, excuse me, rolls, buys the Teemo, rolls more, buys another Teemo. He finds the Vel'Koz, but he can't afford it, Dan. Oh my god. Please survive. All right, he's going up against HJW. This is definitely the weakest board left in the lobby. Only a Teemo 1 as the carry, and Buzzy should have enough tankiness to get his Vel'Koz to cast again, and theoretically, if it casts again, he might be able to kill enough units to live, but I don't know. I might have spoken too soon. The laser's not on the Teemo. He has not killed the Teemo. This is just wailing away. Oh my god, this is a BG if I've ever seen one, Dan. He's just not able to take HJW down. Also, because he bought all those Teemos like the savage that he is, he had no HP left, so no amount of units surviving would have been the correct amount of units for BuzzyBoo in that situation. Takes a very fun 4th place, and we have our top 3 rounded out with Ramkev, HW, and Robin songs.
To be fair, BuzzyBoo took -13, and the Teemo did 12 damage to him, so he was dead either way. And also, had BuzzyBoo decided to, at the very last second, sell one of the Zeniths, there were a couple of replaceable units in his composition. Could have made the Vel'Koz 3, which I think would have been worth it. But honestly, respect for even going for it in the first place. I'm pretty sure other players wouldn't have gone for that. But speaking of the 3 stars, Robin songs did get Draven 3. And we have seen Draven 3 able to take lobbies pretty easily, but also I've seen Draven 3 kind of falter at times because he doesn't really get the breathing room, and Diana with Frozen Heart is part of that. Ramkev repositions, not on the correct side of that Teemo, but this Yasuo 3 just needs time. If you get enough time, Yasuo 3 is the strongest carry in the game just by raw damage, but you just need to ramp up because his true damage cuts through everything and will continue to slice through, but he's not getting the time.
The Revenant CC, it's been knocked up by 2 different bears. It got knocked up by Ivern twice as well. And Ramkev barely survives, and HJW is out, by the way. So Ramkev into the top 2 and now gets to play a different board and one that has much less CC. He's also able to level up and get in the Nautilus, and that 3rd Ironclad could pay a lot of dividends against the Draven 3. This fight is really going to come down to positioning. He needs this Draven to get stuck onto the Lee Sin for as long as possible, and he needs this Diana onto the Draven if at all possible. He needs that Frozen Heart. He needs the CC time. Draven 3 cannot be allowed to ramp up. Robin gives him the oop-de-oop, and he does not dodge it. The Diana's in the right spot. Will it be able to cast?
The Shroud does stall for a little bit of time, but here comes the big move. Oh no, just at the last second. Draven able to shut it down, And Draven 3 should be able to at least take out the front line. Yasuo finally about to the back line, though. Not enough tankiness. Robin Songs loses Ramkev's Yasuo 3. Able to show you maybe Yasuo deserves that nerf just a little bit. Wow, I cannot believe Draven 3 didn't take it. I also said Robin wasn't a reroller. Apparently, he rerolls 4 costs. That's his MO at this point.
Yeah,
really fun game, Bryce. But I'm also saying, like, look, I've seen Draven 3 lose games before. There's another one to add to the mix.
Yeah, there is another one to add to the mix. Draven 3 is very good, but not like an Omega win condition, unlosable situation. Also, Ramkev's board was very, very capped out, right? He has 3-star Lee Sin. He has 3-star Yasuo with essentially best in slot items. He had that Diana jumping into the backline, not able to cast, but was able to get a Frozen Heart, essentially in the heart of the team. Also, you know, the composition in 4 Knights isn't that good into the Nightbringer composition, which is doing a bunch of true damage, right? So it's a lot of interesting things were happening there. It seemed very clear that Ramkev's board was not able to beat HJW's board. HJW was not able to beat Robin's board, and in the end, Robin not able to beat Ramkev's board. So some of the fun rock, paper, scissors dynamic and a little bit of RNG. So it's one of the reasons why TFT is such a beautiful game, so fun to watch, always keeps us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, it also goes to show you that, you know, the Cav spat is pretty powerful. It's not quite as strong as the Assassin Lee Sin under the right circumstances, but it also puts up quite a strong fight. In fact, I believe the data says that Cav spat's slightly better than Nightbringer spat. And also, Ramkev didn't even need it. Jack took it from him, and Ramkev got the first anyways. So well done to Ramkev, and you know, I'm sure Bryce is a happy camper. That being said, Monkey Dog's still a little bit far behind, but that gives us an opportunity to check on what happened in Lobby B with Pokygom Fan Club, Melton Heart leader, able to take that first place. Sarah Lynn with another impressive top 2 performance, and then Kurum and Delicious Milk will wrap up our top 4 with Solus, Becca, Setsuko, and Bry in the bottom 4.
Yeah, I'm convinced Sarah was just trolling us that one time when we were on, and she was, you know, pretending to be a little dizzy because she wanted duct taping together a nice 5th place there and a solid top 4 here as well. Very, very impressive day so far from the Pokygom Fan Club. They came in mathematically eliminated, but not without a hefty amount of pride to play for, racking up the lobby wins and scoring some cash, and very, very impressive performances from Melton Heart and Bry so far today.
Yeah, very much so. And look, there was some money on the line as well. So yes, Pokygom Fan Club, Monkey Dogs, they're dozens of points behind the top 4 right now. And it's pretty unlikely, I think actually extremely unlikely, that they're able to crack the top 4 at this point. Even if they get the full 18, it kind of depends on everybody else to bottom out. And I just don't think it's in their favor. But you can earn some money. You can also play the spoilers. That said, we have an important milestone to update. Team Ramblin' Robin, we knew was 4th, has now upgraded to 3rd. And Team Why People Happy has cracked the top 4, but that's not a big lead over We Are Going 8th. Birdosaurus and HJW are within striking distance for that top 4 with an outside chance for Team Pog-O as well.
Yeah, Pog-O not even that outside of a chance, right? Only 7 points behind Team Why People Happy, and we've talked about the swings, right? If you get a 1st and a 2nd, that's 18 points. If you get a 7th and an 8th, that's 3. So 15-point swings are very possible in this situation, particularly when you're playing in the same lobby, right? If you're able to like grief your opponent's units that you're worried about, and you're able to put together a good team performance, if you just take up 2 of those top 4 spots, all of a sudden it gets very crowded up there, hard for the team that you need to finish poorly. So some swings are very capable here for Game 4. We have 3 teams essentially vying for 1 spot. I suppose there's an outside chance that Ramblin' Robin could score 3 points here and multiple teams could pass them, they could bump, but they seem pretty solidly in qualification position. So we've got three teams that really, it's all coming down to 1 lobby, and it's crazy when you play for 3 weeks and you have 16 teams and we're down. It's the final game, Dan. It's all on the line. Who will make it into next week?
I mean, that's what makes TFT really interesting in some of these narratives, right? It's like when you hyper-focus on just the last few, how does the lobby end up shaking out, and who is able to advance and who goes home? In this case, Why People Happy with Delicious Milk and Becca. We Are Going 8th with Bert and HJW. and Pago with Kermex and Solus. These are the 3 teams that we're paying attention to. But, Mega First, Monkey Dogs, even the Bakugan fan club can really play the spoilers. And, Brontosaurus has put on a pretty good day, too. Sarah Lynn, she's the point leader for Lobby B right now. 20 points, tying Ramblin's performance on the day. So, if Sarah decides to, put one more top 2 under her belt or even better alongside her teammate, I mean, it could be one of these things where every team limps to the finish because everyone else has a top finish. I'm really excited. And what the best part is, we're going to be going to Lobby B for the final game featuring Team Pago and Wide Peepo Happy. Let's have at it, as Sarah Lynn is going to be the POV that we hop on board first.
Yeah, Sarah, such an impressive performance so far today. Worst finish has been a 5th place. 2 second places to go along with that, and that 5th place was admittedly a tough spot and a confusing roll down on 4-1. So good to rejoin her at the beginning of the game, and let's see if she can cap this out and be the overall point leader for the day. And you know what? As we said, she's really in playing spoiler mode, right? Like, Brontosaurus does not have a chance of qualifying for the final day, but there are 2 teams in this lobby that are capable of qualifying for the final day. All eyes will be on Solus and Kurum X, as well as Delicious Milk and Becca. Solus and Kurum X admittedly have their work cut out for them, right? They are 7 points behind the last place qualifier going into this final lobby, but hey, a lot of TFT left to be played.
Very much so, but at the same time, it comes down to one game, and it always feels so nerve-wracking because we know the swings, the highs, the lows of one single individual TFT game. Sarah, off to a pretty generic start, finds a Rakan in the shop, so it does have the ability to start renewers. I've actually personally favored a really reliable renewer start. If I get a Vlad 2 early and I get any kind of tanky items or AP, it feels like a really good bridge into that tree. Does find a brand pair and the ability to pick up set. This is really interesting. The ability to go for like a AP tree, and she only has a single belt. That doesn't give you enough direction to commit to one tree or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, it has a Ziggs pair as well. So, if you have frontline for the Spellweavers and you can get an early brand 2 or just an early Ziggs 2 with a brand, it's one of the strongest openings in the game. I think it's super, super underrated. And finds a tier here. I want to see her buy the Ziggs. Oh,
me too.
Ziggs 2. Yeah, getting Ziggs 2 in the spot is so important. Although, in fairness to her, she would have absolutely no front line, right? So she'd have Ziggs 2 and Brand, and they'd each cast once, and that would be it. But definitely a potentially a big deal in this situation. Unfortunately, no really great slammable items for her. Ziggs and Brand both want blue buff, not Shojin. She doesn't get an obviously completable. I guess you could go Redemption. I think Redemption is very strong in the situation. But if you slam Redemption, all of a sudden your Brand Zig start becomes a lot less valuable because you cannot get a blue buff on one of them, which is something that really helps them shine as damage dealers.
Yep, going against Melton Hart, who has that early forgotten start with the 2-star Udyr. We haven't seen Vayne reroll, but it's definitely been cropping up. Interesting pass here. Serland, of course, knows that she's leaning more towards the AP tree, so Irelia is not a big important factor. But that's still, in my experience, I feel like every time I pass Irelia, I regret it. So it's just one of these things where I think it colorized based on what the teams want to accomplish with their game plan. We mentioned some people like to go AP AD. Based off this start from Becca, I'm kind of leaning towards the AP tree. She already has 2 of the 3 requirements for Abomination, just missing that brand. She doesn't have Draconic from what it looks like, only 2 of the 3. So just barely missing everything on all fronts here for Becca.
Also 3 of 4 brawlers and really good components overall, but no slammable components. So it's kind of an awkward spot. And as a player, Dan, it has got to be tough when you've played you've played 11 games so far. You're in your 12th and final game, and they're so close, and they just need to find a way. If Becca and Milk can get 2 top 4s in the spot, it's very likely that they'll be able to advance. So it's so frustrating when you feel like your opening is so close to being good, but just isn't quite there. You're kind of missing one piece in every angle.
Yeah, and I think at the nice thing is that I think there's a comp that can really benefit from being able to lose and just have good item picks. I think that she's playing one of them. She could pick a Draconic off the carousel. She could pick an Abomination off the carousel. She could pick the exact item she's looking for, or she could even just eco up and try to play Loose Streak. And for those reasons that I mentioned is the reason why I think AP Tree is what I immediately look for if I'm open forwarding, or basically if I'm not able to piece together a good win streak whatsoever. And you can see Becca with the immediate pre-level kind of dismissing the fact that she knows this is very likely a loss, and she just hopes that she can kill a unit or two.
Yeah, her look says it all, Dan. She's like, this is sketchy. I mean, there's obviously potential on her board and in her situation, but it's not feeling not a situation where you feel confident. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. And it also could. What's interesting though is that as far as I know, Becca wants to play the AD tree because that was the plan last week. That Milk would play, or that they would be able to take turns playing, and Milk was like saying, "I'll play more AP, Becca, you play more AD," or vice versa. And so far, we've seen Becca lean more towards the AD tree, but we shall see. Milk is the one also at 100 HP alongside Brian. Looks like Melton Heart. And here we go into the stage 2 carousel and see whether or not there's some big swings here.
So there's a rod that gets grabbed. Becca does not have an availability to grab another Draconic unit. There was a brand if she wanted to get A-Bomb online. It's a rod plus A-Bomb for Becca on the third pick. So she gets that. That's a big hit for Becca, by the way, because she now has an item component that she needs. She can slam that if she wanted to and then just remake the brand later. But she could easily wind up with an Abomination board right now, plus Spellweaver. So she's going to be in a much more stable position. This lobby complexion, Dan, I don't remember ever seeing this. You have 3 players at 100 HP. Everyone else sub 90 as we head into the first carousel. So a very interesting situation where we have a lot of players that are going to be feeling pressure on their boards at a much earlier stage. And then you have 3 people at the top just trying to find their way into a win streak by Krugs.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's going to be one of those interesting yet unfortunate starts for the rest of the lobby where 2 players are left alone at 100 HP streaking at the end of stage 2. We have seen some wild stuff like that. Kurum contemplating slamming Rageblade just to get a little bit of edge. He's going up against Solus, his teammate, and because Kurum wants to stabilize his health total, he's going to slam these items knowing that he's likely to lose anyways against a Nidalee on stage 2. Or is he, though? This Udyr is surviving. It comes down to Udyr versus Nidalee. This fight happens all the time. Big crit.
Oh, the dodge? The dodge again? Oh my god. That was a, I mean, it's not a big deal for Solus. Solus wasn't streaking, but man, did Kurum not want to win from that spot. Meanwhile, Delicious Milk with the incredibly early Jax slams an RFC and a Rage Blade. Very interesting spot from Milk. Where do you think he's going? Does he stick with Jax, or what's the line from here?
He can stick with Jax, but ultimately, this looks like he wants to play Sentinels to me. From Milk, or actually specifically, he wants to get in a position where he can get away with playing Akshan, and he's also holding on to his Rivens because in the world where he doesn't get anything online, he might actually end up just committing to a Riven reroll as well, because these are fantastic items on Riven in particular, and Nidalee. Like Nidalee can use the Rage Blade, Riven can use the RFC extremely well. So I think Milk is keeping himself open. Regardless, the game plan is Becca is on AP, Milk is on AD. In fact, look at Milk. He actually has disabled his webcam. He is full on sweat tryhard mode.
Wow, when was the last time you saw Milk sweat, Dan? That's going to be, he really wants it. He does not want to let Becca down. He wants to make sure that he is doing his part in this final game to secure them their top 4 spot. You love to see it. By the way, we talked about it, 3 players, 100 HP coming out of the first carousel. Only Milk stands at 100 HP, so great situation for Team Wide. People happy. They have the inside track on this lobby, and a great opening from Milk into 100 HP. Becca, not a great opening, but not a terrible opening to play from behind, so you feel pretty good if you are this team so far.
Right, and on the other side, Pago, Solus, and Kurum, the other team with the outside, but still a decent chance to make it. Can Solus replicate that top 2 finish he was able to get with that big redeemed push? He's experimenting a little bit with his boards right now. Looks like he's contesting similar-ish situations to some of the other players with that in Italy, but he does have the Runen's Hurricane, which allows him to play Yasuo. And with 3 out of 4 Nightbringers, could end up just leaning into a Yasuo reroll composition, which I think is okay. You know, again, it's not really just about having to get a top 2 finish, right? I think a lot of people tunnel on that, but if you get like a top 4 alongside Kurum and Becca and Milk don't, their loss is your gain. So just taking up spots in the top 4 could also be a reliable thing. You don't have to gamble and go 1st or 8th in a position like this.
Yeah, and he would love to take this win. Comes pretty close, but the RFC on Jax means no dodges from Nidalee. Solus not able to take that win. Does hold on to the Yasuo because he wants to have that opportunity to potentially play Yasuo. It'll be interesting to see if he rolls any here. This is a board that is not going to, certainly not going to win a ton of rounds, but he does have potential to beat some weaker boards in this stage, though should be able to kill units. Bry, by the way, with a double Titans Aatrox 3 already. I definitely want to take a look at that board if we've got a stable stream, because, man, that would be fun. Sarah Lynn, by the way, also streaking at 84 HP.
Interesting complexion right now as we take a look at Sarah Lynn going up against Solus's board. Playing the blue buff Brand. It's another way you can approach the Abomination tree as use Brand as an item holder. And the fact that blue buff Brand just basically applies big damage over time, DOT, to everybody onto the field. You don't really care that blue buff is pretty much useless on the monstrosity. So Sarah Lynn on that streak, utilizing that tempo. But you gotta love the double Titans Aatrox.
No damage.
0 damage. Titans Resolve, by far the best item onto Aatrox. I guess alongside Redemption. Both are really, really powerful items in particular. So you can see why that is. Hopping on board with Sarah Lynn's teammate Setsuko, who hasn't really been able to have the success that I think we usually are accustomed to watching Setsuko piece together on ladder. Setsuko so far had started off strong with a 3rd place, but since strung together 2 7th places to put him at the worst performing player in Lobby B so far. Can he turn it around? Right now, not on pace to do that.
Yeah, not on pace to do that, to say the least. And not as only is he not on pace, but in a pretty atrocious spot. I mean, 7 loss streak. Unlike Becca, who's playing like a composition that is snowballing economy with Draconic and has this big comeback potential in these legendary AP carries. I really don't know what Setsuko wants to play, but not particularly wealthy, not particularly healthy. We'll be looking at the Radiant Blessing for this lobby on stage 3-5, so a very, very tough situation for Setsuko. And just really fast checked in on the other lobby to see how that's going to try to keep an eye on We Are Going 8th. Bertosaurus is 48 HP on 3-5 as well, or is 40 HP on 3-5 as well. Has already seen the Radiant Blessing. Playing Callista reroll, does have Callista 3, but nothing else. HJW doing fairly well, so we are going 8th is in an okay spot right now, but definitely not, pulling way ahead. So Pog O very much in this.
Well, Setsuko does end up picking up the Ivern, maybe to just get the Revenants online. We have seen him favor the Assassin tree dynamic. So let's see what the Radiant Blessing is. No gold, but
Assassin's
drops an Assassin emblem. And if he wants to go for the
Fiddlesticks?
Assassin emblem, he finds a Fiddlesticks.
Nocturne? It's coming together?
Okay, all right. I mean, we want Fiddlesticks in. We want to play the
Yes.
Assassin emblem onto him. We want to get the 4 Assassins in as well. That's relevant. Ah, no Nocturne 2.
Can slam the Infinity Edge. Could also slam Spark onto the Fiddlesticks if he wants. Very, very good Fiddlesticks item. Or could just wait 1 round for the Radiant and kind of see what he's able to put together. The nice thing if you're Setsuko in this situation, it's not a huge deal if you win or lose, right? If you win, you want to start a winning streak. If you lose, you're maximizing your gold output from the situation. So basically taking a 2 loss or 2 unit loss here, not the end of the world for Setsuko. He needs to find a good Radiant item. Preferably a Nocturne item. We're looking for Radiant RFC, maybe a Runen's Hurricane. QSS it's basically only good on 2 units, Nocturne and Jax, but is very, very good on this Nocturne. He could take the QSS, slam the Infinity Edge, and he could put a Ginsu's on it, and that could be it. He could also put a Ginsu somewhere else and try to Runen's Hurricane. I think it's really the only takeable option for him in the situation. Is there anything else you're looking at, Dan?
I don't think Nocturne's bad with Ginsu's Reckoning, but I definitely don't think it's that good. Locket is also just something that falls off completely, so I agree with your assessment. I think Quake of Silver makes the most sense in this spot. Additional rolls, no Nocturne 2, no easy replacements, ends up Sun Nidalee. Going to keep itemizing Nidalee and see where you can go from there. Going up against Souls' board, who is transitioning over fully to that Yasuo build, but he's not even necessarily just playing straight up Yasuo, he's playing Nightbringers, it seems like. Having that Aphelios hold the Hand of Justice until he's able to find a way to transfer over. But, I mean, Setsuko just looks so weak. I just can't really imagine how he's going to be able to pull out top 4 based on his current pacing. Like, even if he finds Nocturne 2 now, the window for him to start streaking is basically at its limit. He has to roll down again at 4-1, and he has to hit. Otherwise, he's going 8th.
Yeah. It very much feels like he'd be going 8th. He feels dizzy, too, Dan. It feels like he doesn't really know the tree very well, and he doesn't have confidence in the decisions that he's making. Moving over to Kurum's board, Kurum, in a very typical Kurum spot, he's put together a random board, preserves some HP. He has good damage items for, he very likely wants to play Aphelios or Akshan with the Ginsu's Rage Players plus the BT. He slams a Sunfire, generically powerful item that has saved too much of HP. He's also got that Radiant Frozen Heart, such a good item on Diana because with the extra starting mana, she is casting after 1 auto plus the additional slow, so there's just so much value in that item. Grabs 2 items that he's not particularly interested in. It'll be interesting to see how deep he is willing to roll here in order to stabilize his board to hopefully go to level 8.
Looking for some semblance of a carry that isn't Udyr right now. Is Udyr 2
Volibear.
Good job. Finds a Riven 2 and a Volibear. Could we pivot across to Riven here? Finds another Ivern.
Yeah.
And he's out of time. He has to kind of reposition. Does he want to repurpose some of these items? He does not. I guess we wait till the 4-2 Armory at this point. Going up against Sarah Lynn, who does have the brand still online, but now has a Vel'Koz backing it up. Kind of an interesting double mana item situation there going on for Sarah Lynn. Seems to have worked out for her to this point. But she is streaking at 84, and it looks like Kurum is trying to end that streak. It's actually quite close. Daisy comes back again for additional knockup, but there's almost no more damage left here for Kurum, so it should be a win for Sarah Lynn. And that means that Kurum, in my opinion, is not done rolling. What is he going to do at this point?
No, he's definitely not done rolling. We need to find, as you said, a carry for these items. He can take this Runin's Hurricane. I would personally be fine with just selling this Udyr, getting these items onto Riven, getting the extra Revenant in, and now skirmishers don't really matter at this point, right? If you're itemizing Riven, you don't need skirmishers here, right? You can just probably play good units and find your way into a 4-cost carry. The further you roll here, the harder it's going to be to top 4 this lobby, because if you don't find a 4-cost carry for these items that is better than a Riven 2, and I'm not sure how you can, then it's just really, really hard to find your way into enough gold to then improve your board. So I kind of disagree with choosing to roll this deeply, able to Rune-ins, get the BT onto the Riven, and this board should be stable for now, but how long will it be stable, and how much gold and health will he have left over on stage 5-1 when he is ready to roll it down again? Also, very interesting, puts the BT onto the Nidalee, no skirmishers on the Nidalee, so I would much rather see that BT onto the Riven 2 than the Nidalee 1.
Yeah, it doesn't have Legionnaire, though, either, right? So it's like one of these things where he's missing that very key link of Irelia, and you can start to see, like, why that unit is revered so deeply. Also, should maybe evaluate whether or not he wants this Galio, because it can tie everything together really nicely with Knights and Sentinels for that front line, but I guess he's just too poor. We're going to pivot over to Souls, his Kurum's teammate, who apparently is a Spatula Whisperer. What's going on here? Assassin Yasuo has another Spatula. He's rolling on 7. Seems like things are going much more reliably for his reroll plan at the moment, at least for hitting the 2 stars. It's still a little bit awkward, though, in terms of like what direction that he's going for here.
Yeah, Solus and Kurum both needing to get into the top 4 likely in order to be able to pass the 2 other teams. Not in great situations to do it. I mean, this Yasuo Assassin will do a meaningful amount of work. These items are really good, but only 3 Yasuos so far, so he's so far away from that Yasuo 3, and that Yasuo 3 is going to be pivotal Should be able to take care of Sarah Lynn's board, though. Sarah Lynn with that Heimerdinger 1, no damage item, so that Heimer casts across the team is kind of tickling Solus's board. Definitely not enough. Ooh, you love to see it, Dan. He takes the spatula that is open. He moves the spatula onto his Nautilus on the bench, so anyone scouting will not see it. He's really hoping that people do not realize he has a spat open and deny this force of nature. Will Becca
really
realize
clever.
it? They don't see it.
They don't see it, and Solus gets the ability to make a force of nature. Cool play here from Solus to try to maximize his odds. He also has the ability to just roll at 7 indefinitely now. And, with the Assassin Emblem onto the Yasuo, it basically is a dual gauntlet at that point. I mean, I really think Solus can make a deep run here in this game right now. Yes, Bry and Melton Hart are the players streaking right now, or at least doing really well. But I really love how Solus chose to approach this moment of the game. And now he's on the roll down.
Yeah, that was beautiful. We throw around the concept 5-head in TFT a lot. That was true 5-head. There are so few people who think about the dynamic of, listen, it's good lobby, people are scouting my board, I've got this spat, if it's on the bench, people will see it, people will ping it, people will deny me my force of nature because it's such a big spike. I will put it onto this unit, people will not notice, and man, it's, there's not a spatula on the majority of carousels or even close to it, but winds up getting rewarded for that beautiful, beautiful play.
Yeah, that being said, positioning for this fight would not the best, but still pretty good, and almost becomes a thing where you don't have to worry too much about Yasuo. It's really about Diana. Yasuo having the Assassin Emblem also kind of kills two birds with one stone. The purpose of things like rapid fire cannons to keep Yasuo's DPS high while also keeping him safe. Assassin Emblem just cuts straight to the chase. Not only is he safe because he gets the jump, he also dodges the arrow in the beginning, and he also jumps on the backline carries and might be able to snipe them before they get online. So this is a really interesting dynamic happening here in the lobby as we take a look at the end of stage 4. Solus is hitting Setsuko level to 8 at 10 HP. Becca and Milk both in the bottom 4. And if Becca and Milk collectively hold hands to a bot 4 finish, I feel like top 4 for this tournament has been blown wide open.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, Dan. The top 3 are all players that are mathematically eliminated from this tournament. The 4 players in this lobby that desperately need to do well are not putting it together right now. Meanwhile, in the other lobby, everyone's still alive heading into stage 5, but HJW and Bertosaurus both in the bottom 4, both under 30 HP. Bertosaurus has stabilized his reroll Callista board, but it is anybody's bet how far that is able to go. And in this situation, it feels like it's going to be able, whoever puts together a decent performance is going to get their very big win from Solus over Delicious Milk. Milk down to 15 HP at the end of stage 4. Becca barely ahead of him at 21.
Well, Becca's at least able to stabilize. Taking a look at Kerm's board as well, trying to see if Kerm can stabilize as well at 54 HP. Kerm's doing a great job preserving life, but he's going up against a super tanky Aatrox from Bry. And that leads us to the end of stage 4. The final components are going to be collected. Taking a look at Kerm's board, he does have 5 Rivens. And this ad hoc Revenant, Dawnbringer, Nightbringer fusion straddling the line seems to have finally picked up the pace here. And Kurum is in a pretty good position to reroll Riven. Doesn't have the traditional frontline that you associate with it. A lot of times Riven likes to go deeper in the Dawnbringer tree to amplify the amount of damage that she can do with each of her autos once she starts getting online. But without the full itemization of Riven, having this split ends up being okay for now. But as Bryce has mentioned multiple times, this is the exact point that Riven falls off, and his items doesn't seem to be giving him additional help in that direction. He does have the magnetic remover, so I'm curious to see if he's going to utilize that. But for now, what will Kurum do? Is he going to pump to 8 and maybe fish for some legendaries there and lean into his Revenants? Or is he going to re-roll and try to hit this Riven 3 with basically no items?
Yeah, and like you said, there's a snowballing dynamic to re-rolling in lobbies because of the shared pool. And in this situation, the fact that the Yasuo re-roll player is also not hitting is really hurting Kurum X. We want to see more 3 costs out of the pool. There's only 2 people going for 3 costs. Neither of them are finding very many copies in the unit. So basically all the 3 costs are in the pool because everyone else is playing other compositions. Meanwhile, Sarah Lynn, who last we looked at her board, only had a Shoujo on this Heimerdinger, winds up with a Ginsu's and a Archangel. So this Heimerdinger is going to slap Kurum takes big damage as we start stage 5. Not the situation that he wants to be in. Becca also takes a huge loss. 4 out of a bottom 5 right now are the players that need to score points to advance to tomorrow. Kurum finally gets access to the Radiant Blessing. Gets a spatula. That's big, Dan. Can be a Dawnbringer spatula. But otherwise, not great items for this situation.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. Has the ability to make redemption, but I know Kurum's not even thinking about it right now. He's thinking about his roll down. So you want to play Fiddlesticks. That does give him the ability to stretch for 3 Revenant. Maybe itemize for a different carry as well. No magnetic remove whatsoever at the moment. Trying to reposition. Every single hit point is going to matter. Redemption Slam, meaning no Dawnbringer.
It could be Renewer. I want Renewer, maybe.
Oh, actually, I was open to Renewer as well. I thought about that. I really like Renewer spat. New Battle has been trying to innovate on that front a lot in particular. But Kurum ends up committing to it, leaving him with just a Spellweaver spat possibility, which is pretty useless in this comp.
Yeah, very unlikely to ever make use of that. So he's got 2 dead items. Not sure I love this, but such a tough spot. Goes up against Melton Heart, who already has a stable board with the full Sentinels online, including the Sentinel Emblem. Very, very tough. Setsuko, good guy Setsuko, winds up grabbing the 8th place, and that is badly needed for the remainder of our 4 lowest HP players, all of whom need to score as many points as they can, particularly against each other. This is a situation where you might not have to do that well since everyone else isn't doing very well. As long as you are able to beat out the other people on board, Kurum winds up getting a Karma 2 for Dawnbringer in play. By the way, Bertosaurus does go out in 6th place in the other lobby. HJW holding on currently in 3rd. So some points out there potentially for We Are going 8th. Kurum is able to make this Ionic Spark, is going to remove it. I definitely agree with that. Need to get these items in play if at all possible. This is a huge matchup going up against Delicious Milk. One of these two could be dead.
That's right, and this Jax has better items from Milk because he has a remover. Before he had the Rage Blade on his Nidalee with the Frozen Heart of Gold stalling, but she jumps to a different target. The D-aggro ends up potentially being huge here if the Jax will take it out, and there's almost no DPS left for Kurum. Milk is able to press forward. Is Kurum dead?
No, barely, it's not quite fatal.
Oh, Becca wins as well. Souls takes a loss. Lots of rearrangement. But Kurum, a ray of hope has just appeared in his shop. He has a single copy of Akshan. If he finds an ability to lean into that, what is happening on his carousel? 3 Trap Claws, a Guardian Angel. What?
Wow, Trap Claw, one of the most powerful generic items in the game. There is no board that is not interested in using Trap Claw. We see them get gobbled up 1, 2, 3. Solus very sad to be left out of the Trap Claw party, and everyone else is saying, man, oh man, is that tough. And if you are Sarah Lynn, that feels really bad, because if you don't have backline access, that means that the first time you're going to be hitting opponents' carries is likely going to be when you're Heimerdinger ults, and you cannot afford for Heimerdinger ult to essentially come up empty because of these Trap Claws. So very tough position. Meanwhile, Milk, we're getting a full look at his board, and it looks very good. This is an awesome iteration of Fortnite Jax. He has all the knights in play, including a Garen 2-star with a Morello. He's got the Galio too. He has the Radiant Zeeks plus a Trap Claw now, and a Viego. So Milk in a very good spot. Just needs to avoid playing the 9 Radiant board or the Yasuo 3. It is Solus versus Milk. Another head-to-head between these two teams. Can the Yasuo 3 get access to this Jax?
Well, the Jax does have a couple of buffer room. Yasuo cuts down the Thresh before the chain was able to throw out. Yasuo is also stunned a little bit or taunted by the Galio, but Jax able to finish off the Yasuo. That's so big, but there's so many units remaining that there could be just overwhelming pressure from the remaining amount of units and their DPS and the Sunfire Cape able to withstand it. Milkless with 1 HP. Kermax is out in 7th place. If Becca's able to win, that should be able to seal the deal. And Becca is able to survive by the skin of her teeth, the comeback from 5 HP. And I think that should basically seal it. We're going to have confirmation from the admins. I'm not entirely sure, but Kurum absolutely needed to survive in order to give a chance for Team Pago. Solus could theoretically get first, and if Becca and Milk take bottom 4s, that could have the rearrangement that we want to see if Pago is going to leapfrog. But only time will tell. Milk surviving at 1 HP. How far can he go with this makeshift Jax carry?
Yeah, you also, it's not just down to whether or not Pago can pass hidden past, why people happy, right? We also have we going 8th in the other lobby, and we have Burtosaurus already out in 6th place. The top 4 is set there, and HJW is in it. So how many points can HJW get in that lobby, and will it be able to fend off Pogo? Only time will tell. Meanwhile, Delicious Milk is going up against this Heimerdinger 2 now, and the Knights board is able to get it done, able to run down Sarah Lynn's Ghost, and deal massive damage. Meanwhile, Bry's triple Titans Aatrox 3 is enough to eliminate Becca. So Becca takes the 6th, and now Milk. Can Milk find his way into the top 4?
Gets a second copy of Merlinomicon. That's not what you want to see if you're Milk. Scouting around, challenge for the AP comp. Shojin, generically okay.
A double fawn for Melton Heart, by the way.
Yeah, Melton Heart has 2 Force of Natures. So it comes down to whether or not Milk actually has to decide if he wants to roll here or not, because he does have the ability to go for Akshan 2. There are even enough out of the pool. 9 is almost out of the question, just given his current gold state. And I guess we just have to find Akshan 2. A Rel 2 opportunity. What would you even replace? To scout the lobby to see if he needs that other Ironclad. Ends up making the Rel 2 with Viego. Chasing the Akshan.
Man, I would drop Akshan for Viego in this situation. I don't think that Sentinel buff is better than Skirmisher buff at this stage. With no damage items on Jax and a composition that stalls indefinitely, I really am interested in the extra AD scaling that you get off of the Jax. Yeah. Meanwhile, he positions very well into this Vel'Koz, but the Aatrox is in front of it. Can this Aatrox ever be killed? They are going to apply Morello right away, so it's not going to heal nearly as much. The Jax is starting to cut through it, but again, this Jax does not have ramping damage, and the healing from the Aatrox 3 with the fully stacked triple Titans is coming across. Jax is still stuck. Finally, Aatrox goes down. The Jax is on the right side and jumps onto the Vel'Koz. The Vel'Koz steps up. The KO has ascended fully, and the Vel'Koz is going to turn all the way back around and try to deal with this Jax. Jax does have enough sustain to deal with this, though. The Lux plus Cinder gets tossed away, and that is it. Milk is out in 4th place. Melton Heart is out in 4th. Or sorry, Milk in 5th, Melton Heart in 4th. Our top 3 is done, and Bry with that insane Aatrox is the top of the lobby.
I mean, honestly, Milk really made the best that he could do in that situation. I totally see what you're saying about the skirms, but his positioning was impeccable. He really maximized every single out that he had, and it just wasn't enough. Solus, it's really up to him on how he makes this happen. Bry looks kind of unstoppable. Phantom swapping, repositioning Yasuo to target the left side alongside Diana. That's not the right side. Heimerdinger is on the right. That being said, if the Heimerdinger is not able to kill, he can still eliminate the turret. And here comes the upgrade, able to apply the anti-heal. But you know what? No one's checking this Yasuo. He is going and slicing and dicing.
Another cast.
Dead to me. Not able to finish it off. And Solus improves to a top 2. Bry going up against one of the ghosts. Ends up taking the damage here from Sarah Lynn. Actually, this Aatrox 3 looks unkillable. I don't think Heimer2 can actually do anything to it.
Oh, but the AD? Oh, it did! God. Another cast!
What
Bry bleeds. Wow, the
nine
redeemed the 9 redeemed Aatrox 3 with triple Titans. If this is not a fun TFT board, if you do not have fun watching it, then I don't know what is wrong with you. This is TFT at its finest. We have a 9 redeemed versus a 6 Nightbringer Assassin Yasuo 3. I want to give you some deep analysis about how this fight plays out, Dan, but I can't say I've ever seen this matchup before. We need to get these assassins access to try to kill the Vel'Koz. He cannot afford for Vel'Koz to get multiple casts. The Yasuo is jumping towards the right side, and it aggroes to the right. It's going to kill KO, and then it should turn and kill the Varus, and then immediately turn around and deal with this Vel'Koz.
Yeah, really well done. And also the Diana is not even on the wrong side because it draws the aggression from the Syndra, so he just immediately eliminates the backside. And Bry is not dead, but this could be the last stand of the 9 redeemed. It comes down to the carousel. Is there anything that Bry is looking for? Holding a Garen pair. Looking for any specific items to potentially swing things. ZZ Rod Portal, something interesting to me. There's a redeem spat, which honestly, I'm not even sure if we need more redeems. You already have 9 redeems.
Yeah, but I guess play better unit. Yeah, play a better unit, right? Replace Varus. I also think that Bry needs to recognize this is not a standard Yasuo composition.
Yes.
And
corner.
You need a full corner, right? Like, you
Full
cannot
corner.
afford to have your carries wiped down like this. You've got a Syndra that's not peeling for your primary carries right now. So this is a big positioning difference. Bri needs to be putting everything wedged into a corner, and with the change in Assassins, where Assassins jump first every single time, that will mean that the Yasuo is going to wind up attacking a whole bunch of frontline units first. Bri is able to upgrade Volibear 2. That's a big deal. What will the positioning wind up being?
Bri does end up clumping for a big portion of it. Does end up leaving the Lux on the right side corner. Vel'Koz is safe. Right now, we're trying to see if we can protect Yasuo chopping through systematically. Syndra is not able to get the cast off thanks to the Trap Claw. And Yasuo does get stunned, turns around and aggroes onto the Ivern instead and runs away from the Vel'Koz. That might be the glimmer of hope that Bri needs to be able to end it. Vel'Koz with the second cast eliminates most of the front line. Is now down to just Yasuo. And the Diana and Yasuo are trying to fend off against the onslaught of the Redeemed Army. Yasuo autos hit like a truck, and Solus will complete the comeback, taking the final lobby game 4. The question remains, is it enough for Pago to be able to advance to Championship Sunday? We'll find out as Jirachi is on a duel over HJW. Bryce did mention, we've been talking about all the way, that there is a third team in the mix. We are going 8th. Is still in it with HJW in 2nd. We're taking a look. Jirachi has the Riven 3 online going up against the Fortnite Jax. What are some of the things to pay attention to as we take a look at what should be the last fight here, Bryce?
Yeah, definitely the last fight in Stage 7, certainly at 9 and 3 HP, it will be fatal. We're seeing Jirachi's board, very, very strong iteration of the Dawnbringer reroll, plus the Renewer Spat onto the Aurelia, fully upgraded with amazing items on both the Riven and the Nidalee. Only a 1 win streak for Jirachi, so Jirachi has lost sometime recently. Wow, that is such a big hit. I'm also surprised Jirachi went for the Hodge on the Viego. I feel like it's better onto the Recon 3 at this point. But this is all going to come down to positioning. We need to see HAW. HAW did upgrade Jax. Jax 3? Oh my god, and this could swing it, by the way. I mean, we don't know exactly what the math is coming down to, but it's possible because Bertosaurus got 6th place that HJW needs the extra 2 points from first in order to secure we are going 8th their spot in the final lobby. Reposition from Jirachi moves the Nidalee over to the right side. The Jax 3 is directly in front of the Riven. It's all going to come down to that matchup.
I mean, Jax 3, whether or not he can get contested or not. Viego does not end up hitting onto the right unit. Jax just looks like he is uncontested. He's onto the Riven 3. The stun ends up becoming huge for Riven, but she doesn't have any other help. And the fact that Jirachi left Riven on the same side as Jax gave them almost no chance whatsoever. Jax 3 crushes through in the finale of game number 4. It's been the tale of a lot of rerolls, but today I feel like we've seen almost every single forecast that you've come to expect, right? Draven 3, Vel'Koz 3 attempts. We saw a Jax 3. What an explosive way to wrap up the pool play for today, Bryce.
Yeah, so explosive, and we were in a situation where we had 3 teams vying for it, and different members of these teams all struggled. All of these teams had one person finish in the top 4 and the other person finish in the bot 4, except I believe Becca and Milk, who both bot 4, but they were the most ahead in points. So I haven't done this. I don't have a spoiler for you. There was too much going on across these 2 lobbies for me to also be doing math in the back of our heads, chat. So maybe some of you have figured it out, but I genuinely do not know who our last teams are. I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, and I'm just for the sake of posterity, I'm not going to look. I'm sure there's the answer on the score sheet if you just refresh, but for now, let's go ahead and recap what we saw. Solus with the win, able to get $150, but can't help but notice that current placement says 6th, which means it wasn't enough for Pago to be able to crack the top 4. Did HJW and Bird do with the 13? I feel like Milk and Becca put enough points up there, but they did. That win from HJW put them in 3rd place. $300, big time clutch from HJW and Bertosaurus with the worst team name because it's just not true. They went first. And with that, the standings have been settled. Ramblin' Robin at 143, featuring Ramblin' and Robin songs. Soul Cat for Econ, featuring Raditz and Broccoli. We are going 8th with Bertosaurus and HJW. and 8875 featuring Soju and Precedent. These are the top 4 teams advancing to next week's championships.
Wow, what a wild finish. We knew we were in for a good one with so many teams competitive. It was also really cool to see the way in which the dynamic played out. You know, Birdosaurus, the known commodity, doing so well throughout the tournament, finishes 6th in their final do or die lobby, and it's HJW clutching out the win with the Jax 3 and advancing them on to the final day. Big bummer for Wide people. Happy they were so close, a bit of an up and down day, but really struggled to get it going in that final lobby, both bottom 4ing and busting out of this tournament.
Wow, so close. They came in as the favorites, but I mean, when you got to put your best foot forward, and sometimes it doesn't work out. You know, more importantly, it's really also a celebration of a comeback from players like HJW and Bird. These are players comparatively to Becca and Milk are far less known. They got some serious skills, and also on HJW's side, putting on the best performance of the day in Lobby A alongside Robin Songs with 26 points. What a way to clutch it, going for a 4th, a 3rd, and a 1st to wrap up his last 3 games.
Yeah, came up so big at the end, and as we saw, it was very close. They needed every single one of those points. So backs against the wall, final day. We talked about the swings of the duos tournament. That's why we were constantly saying, hey, let's not count our chickens before the eggs have hatched, right? Because there are just so many points available in each of these lobbies that these big time comebacks are real. We saw it in action, and it is crazy. We're losing 12 teams. All 4 of the teams left, though. Very good teams. I'm excited for next week to get into this final lobby.
Yeah, should be good. And of course, there's a lot of bragging rights on the line. I'm sure the streamers have told you all about it. There's some fun, banter going on back and forth in the chat already. So I'm looking forward to it. This duo tournament has been super fun, but we're not done yet because we also are going to have a winner's interview with a couple of the players. So in the meantime, we're going to take a few minutes to take a break. And when we come back, the conclusion of pool play here at Giant Slayer Series. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Giant Slayer Series. We're joined by We Are Going 8th with Bert and HJW just for a couple words on their wins. Let's talk a little bit about some of the generic questions out of the way. You know, how's it feel to qualify, Bert? We'll start with you. What's going through your mind right now?
It's pretty hype because I think like when going into this tournament, I just wanted to for fun it, so I picked one of my IRL friends and thought it'd just be fun to play. And then like if we end up doing well, it'd be like it'd be fun. So like by the end of that, when it was like super close and it literally like last game, I was talking like we just need to get 13 points and then we make it for sure. And it was super hype because we got exactly 13 points and it was like an intense 1v1 at the end. So yeah, I mean it's really exciting to make it, especially with the way like the games and the days have played out because it's been super close throughout like the entire tourney. So yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And then HJ, since we don't know too much about you, why don't you introduce yourself as opposed to everybody?
And in the introduction, HJW, I must know the backstory on this picture.
Oh, sure. So basically, I started playing set 3.5. Bert actually got me into the game. He was just like, we played League a lot, and we know each other from high school. And so one night, we were kind of just like waiting to start a game, only had like 3 people, and he was just like, you want to try playing TFT? And I was like, sure. And so I started playing, really enjoyed the game. I got masters like every set that I played, but couldn't climb out of masters. Low-key kind of hard stuck. I hit GM this set though, and then I demoted. And then like as for just the profile picture, I don't know. I watched Adventure Time like 2 years ago. Like I just rewatched the whole thing. It was on like Hulu or something like that, and I just thought it'd be a cool profile picture. I don't know.
Oh, I think he's talking about your profile picture on the stream, which is I think it's your Clash profile picture.
Oh yeah, no, I just thought that was a funny picture. I like they asked for a picture, and I was just like, oh, I need a good picture, and so I looked through my phone, and that was a good one. It was a funny one. Yeah.
I love it. Well done. It's a great introduction to the TFT community. So I'm noticing a trend, by the way. Two of the top 4 teams are people who picked their IRL friends and got carried by them in the end. So well done, HW. How did it feel? I'm assuming this is your first competitive TFT tournament experience. Were you nervous? Were you excited? Do you think it affected your play either positively or negatively?
Yeah, I was pretty exciting. I was really hyped, mostly just to play with like some of these like big name streamers that I've been watching for a little while and stuff. But overall, I don't know. I wasn't too frightened or anything, just because I didn't really have my expectations set too high. Like I thought we were just like for funning it, and then we ended up doing well. Just hit. That's all this game is. It's easy if you hit. I swear.
Can't really argue against that. So let's spice it up a little bit. Can we rank the 4 teams for next week's finals from 1 to 4?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I don't know, Hunter. I think I think the first place is pretty obvious is like Ramblin' Roblin. I think those guys are Omega Smurfs. Not really much to talk about there. They're super consistent. Well, who do you think is second, Hunter?
Second, I don't know. Soul Cat for Econ. We didn't play against 8875, so I don't really know. But Soul Cat for Econ, they played against us the second week, and they were just popping off.
Ray
Omega Smurf.
Ray.
I don't think he got bot 4 once.
He went like top 3 every game, or he went like I think he went like 1-2, 1-4 or something like that. So yeah, we'll see. Like, because I think they're also a pretty solid team, but I'd have to see more of them.
Okay, so
yeah.
Ramblin' Robin first, Soul Cat for Econ in second. Who's third?
I think I'd put ourselves in third. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Dan wanted to hear you say it. He needed to hear you rank Soju last. He needed you officially on the record. Excellent deposition work, Dan. Very, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. All right, great. Bryce, you have any other questions for our guests here? I
was just going to ask one question about your preparation going into the final week. Do you think that the way in which you're going to approach this will change with being in one lobby and only one lobby, knowing the other teams? Like, do you think that will significantly change your approach or preparation, or are you just going to keep doing what you've been doing?
Our approach / preparation has mostly been like we play some games and then like talk about our strategy and like meta before going into the tourney. And then so like Hunter came in playing AP and most games are like planning to play AP, so we did tier start a few games, and then I was just doing like flexing with sword or belt to play like AD and stuff. So I think like in terms of prep, there's not much that'll change because honestly, like I mean, because the lobbies were pre-scheduled, like scheduled, so we'd see everybody going in the lobby. I guess like there is like maybe we could like dig a little bit more into people's match histories. But I think for the most part, we'll do the same thing we've been doing.
Yeah, I think Bert phrased that pretty well. I have nothing to add.
All right. Well, is there any last shout outs or thank yous or any like closing comments you like to say before we let you go?
I just want to say, I guess that before before Hunter even played and coming into this tourney, all of our friends knew Hunter as an Omega high roller, and I guess he's still Omega high rolling. But I guess if you're high rolling every game, it's just skill. It's just a player diff.
That's true. I can't argue with that. All right. Well, congratulations. We are going 8th. Might again probably have to change the team name pretty soon, but congratulations. We'll see you next week for the finals.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep, congrats, guys.
All right. So there you go. You know, Bryce, some people call it high rolling, some people call it power of friendship. You know, I think that there's one thing that we learned in so far this duo is that playing with an IRL friend does come with some benefits. I feel like,
yeah,
you know, your friend who you're kind of like coaching up just comes in fearless, not afraid of like the challenger lobby stakes. And just like, I'm just going to do my thing and just stick to my guns, and that ended up paying off.
Totally. I think the final 4 teams we have was super fun. We have like the Omega Sweat team that everyone coming in said this team is insane. They're obviously gonna make it to the final day, and they do. You have Soldcap for Econ, who are 2 members of the TFT community since set 1. I think 2 underrated players and underknown players because they haven't necessarily found the tournament success. It's been particularly fun for me to see Raditz popping off over the course of the tournament because I think that he's shown a lot of potential, and he was so close to qualifying for regionals, so great to see him having good showing here. And then you have 2 really well-known members of the community in Bertosaurus and Soju who picked their IRL friends and made it. And so you're right, there's this really fun kind of like David versus Goliath, and can friendship win over Omega sweating? I hope so, Dan. I want to live in a world in which, you know, friendship over sweats, but I guess we'll find out next week.
I will. Shout out to Reyes, of course, closing out with 81 total points across 12 games, which means that he averaged a little under 7 points per game as our #1 point scorer. So I do think that a lot of what you said is it's interesting to pay attention to what's going to happen. But these will be the 4 teams. We're going to just play 6 games across this lobby, and we'll have all these players back on August 30th, which is next Monday. It's going to be pretty soon. And I'm looking forward to it.
And then regionals. I'm looking forward to it too. I feel like this was built as like the stepping stone to regionals tournament, and it's delivered on the hype and the fun, and we got the finals to come, and then it's time to figure out who we're sending into Worlds, and, you know, can we win an international title in the League of Legends universe for North America? I believe that we can. It is going to happen this year. Let's do it.
Came really, really close, but that's just some of the stuff that is to come. Of course, we're going to have the finals next Monday. But if you're, you know, hanging out here on giantslayer TFT channel tomorrow night, you haven't seen the last of Esportslaw over on this side. He's actually going to be joining me for Teamfight Talk Show since Doa can't make it. So we'll be having Soju and Prestivan 8875 will be our guests for that episode. It's going to be a dumpster fire. Let's just say it right now. It's going to be completely chaotic. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure chat's going to revolt or you know, have a riot like a few times. So you don't want to miss it. That's going to be happening tomorrow on this channel. But in that case, let's get some final thoughts from Bryce and then wrap up this bad boy. Anything you want to say, Bryce?
I love this game. I love Giant Slayer. I love casting with you. This has been a pleasure, and I can't wait for next week already.
All right, hit that follow button. That's it for us from Frodan Esportslaw and everybody part of Wisdom Gaming for this broadcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for more TFT action.